Hello everybody, for today's video I have 50 plus Dollar Tree DIYs made up from all my past Dollar Tree videos combined into one huge mega video, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. So without further ado, let's jump in.
I found this placemat at the Dollar Tree and instantly fell in love with it. It is so beautiful and I knew I wanted to DIY with it. So I'm going to take this sign from Hobby Lobby. It's $12.99, but you can get it on sale for 40% off, which is what I did. I also grabbed these 3/8 by 36 inch square dowels. I picked up 2 of these from a local hardware store, and I am going to start measuring out the inside of my sign so that I can have a little border of these dowels inside my sign. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because if I tried to cut down that placemat, I'd have to get it as perfect as I possibly can so that it could fit inside my sign, and then you worry about whether you've gotten it completely straight. So by adding the frame on the inside, it's going to kind of cover up any kind of gaps or anything like that. So I just measured my dowels, cut them down using my miter shears, and I'm going to stain them in this lighter walnut color. I tried to find something that was as close to the original sign as possible. So I just take that stain and stain all 4 of my dowels. Now I'm going to measure the inside of my sign so I know about how wide I need that sign to be. I marked it with a pencil about where I would need to cut. I wanted to try to get those words as centered as best as I could. So I marked that, and then I just used my Cricut paper cutter to cut this down, and it worked great. I did that on both sides, and then since the length was too long to fit inside there, I did just take a pair of scissors and kind of did some trimming until it fit inside my sign. And this is not going to go in the sign perfectly, but those wooden dowels will cover up any of those gaps. So I put some Mod Podge down onto the sign and spread that out with a paintbrush. I wasn't too worried about making the placemat stick fully to the sign this way because we are going to put those dowels on top, and that will also hold the placemat down in place. I'm going to add some wood glue super glue to all of my wooden dowels and slide those dowels into place on my sign. I did end up going back through with a finish nailer and some small nails and nailing the dowels to the sign itself just for a little bit more added security. But if you don't have a nailer, I don't think it's necessary. You can just use the glue. But for peace of mind, I just added those so I knew I had a piece that would last for a long time. And this is the way that it turned out. I think this is gorgeous. I think that this looks like a piece that you could have went and bought from the store, and it cost me probably around $15 to make with the sign and the wooden dowels and placemat. I think that is a fantastic price for how high-end this sign looks.
Really quick before we jump into our next DIY, I just launched a ton of new craft kits over on my website, moorevinyldecals.com. Got Easter, spring, farmhouse, so many fun things that I think you guys are going to love so much. So if you want to check those out, I'll leave a link in the description box below, or you can head to moorevinyldecals.com to shop. I'm going to grab these 2 long signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. They have signs like this up basically all year round, so whatever ones that you have will definitely work. I'm going to go ahead and remove those hangers on the back, and then I just used a flathead screwdriver to get those staples out, but they basically just popped out as I was pulling them out from the ribbon. I'm going to grab some large popsicle sticks that I got from Walmart. I'm going to cut them in half to use as extra supports for the back of my sign. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to the edge of one of those signs, and then I'm going to push them together and make sure they are even on both ends. And then, like I said, for that extra support, I'm going to take those popsicle sticks and then I'm just going to start gluing my 2 signs together. I am also using a wood glue hot glue that
you can find a link for in my description box below. This I find holds up way better than regular hot glue, so this is the kind that I always like to use. Once I've got my support on there, I'm going to flip it around and we are going to use the back side as the front side of our sign. I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to give my entire sign a good one coat. I wasn't too worried about covering it completely because this is going to be a rustic and distressed sign, so no need to do multiple coats for this sign. Now I'm going to grab 3 of these arrows that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use them as houses. So I'm just going to start by removing the jute hanger and the tags from these. And I'm going to go ahead and just paint the edges of all of those arrows just in that same white Waverly chalk paint, because you will be able to see the sides, and I wanted them to be covered up and not just have that natural wood. I wanted them to match with the back, so I did just take all 3 of those wood arrows and paint all the sides in white. Now for my sign, I'm going to take this big ruler and leveler that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use it to draw some faux shiplap lines on it. I just followed those same indentations that were in the sign already, and I just matched those up. I went over those pencil marks with my Waverly chalk paint in mineral just to give it a little bit more definition. And then I'm going to take a chip brush and go around all of the edges of my sign so it looks a little bit more weathered. And then whatever I have left on the brush, I'm going to drag it through the entire sign. I also went through and did little circles on them to kind of make it look like little knots here and there. I don't know if they exactly looked like that, but I thought it was cute. Once I have it all painted and the paint is dry, I'm going to take my sandpaper and just rough it up a little bit, go over those lines to soften them up. And then I'm going to take this home sign that you can also get from the Dollar Tree. I just cut off the jute hanger on there. And I have been loving the two-tone look on the word cutouts that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I've seen several people do it and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I decided to do a two-tone with mine, and I'm going to just take my Waverly chalk paint in mineral. I love these 2 colors together. I think that the natural kind of wood look that the home sign already was with this mineral color, they just look so good together. It's not too much of a difference, but I love the way that it turned out. So once it's all painted, I'm just going to remove that painter's tape, and that's all you have to do for this. I think it is absolutely adorable. So I'm going to go back to my arrows. I'm going to take some scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. Both of the scrapbook paper that I'll be using in this DIY is from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to trace out my arrows with that paper. I'm going to do 2 of the same paper and then 1 that is different. Basically, 2 of them are going to have a wood texture to them, and the third one is going to have a brick texture to it. I'm going to get all 3 of those arrows cut out. I'm just going to take a glue stick and I'm going to use that to attach my scrapbook paper to my little arrows, which are just gonna look like little houses. And I thought this scrapbook paper was so pretty. I love the herringbone pattern that it has to it, and I love the faux wood. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And then for the third one, it's this brick texture that I thought was so pretty as well. So you got your wood houses, you got your brick house. So I thought that these were so cute. And then I just went in with some sandpaper to all the edges of my houses to get all the excess paper off of them. Any of the paper that was hanging off all the edges, I just went back and forth, and the paper comes off really, really easy. And I also like that it gives it a little bit more of a distressed look to the paper. Next, I'm going to hot glue all my houses down to my sign. I'm just going to lay them out right in the middle. I just did the wood house and then with the brick house in the middle and then the other wood house on the other side. And I tried to just line these up as even as I possibly could. And then I'm going to take that home sign and I am just going to put that right on top of those little houses.
And lastly, I'm going to take this ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to tie it in a simple little bow, add some hot glue, and attach that to my middle house at the very top. I'm going to dovetail the ends, and that is it for this home sign. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love how neutral it is, and I'm so excited to add this to my home decor.
You as you drive, do you know I'm looking, and I can't help but smile. Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on, I put my feet up, and we just sing along, and I can't help but feeling, just loving.
I grabbed one of these bunny MDF cutouts from the Dollar Tree. I started by taking off the little pom-pom at the bottom and then the tie around the front. I'm going to be using the back as the front for this. So I'm going to start by using some white paint and giving my bunny one coat of paint. Next, I cut out this stencil using a mylar sheet and my laser. If you're interested in one of these checkered stencils, head over to my website, moorevinyldecals.com, and you can purchase a 12 by 12 of these stencils on there. But I am going to do a checkered pattern. I'm using a sponge, and I'm going to go in up and down dabbing motions, and I made sure to dab off any of the excess paint. I didn't want my sponge to be like fully saturated, so anytime I'm dabbing it in the paint, I scrape the majority of it off and then go up and down. And then I'm going to pick up that stencil, lay it back down so that I can do the rest of the bunny, and I just hold that down with my hand. This is super easy to do, plus you can wash the mylar stencils. So if you want it nice and clean for your next project, you can wash it. I'm too lazy to do that, so I just leave the paint on there and reuse it again in another project, and it works perfectly every time. Now, I wanted my bunny to be a little bit more boho rustic kind of look to it, so I'm going to take the Waverly Wax and Antique, and then I also used a baby wipe to apply the wax, which I think worked really well, and it gave it kind of that rustic-y feeling to it. You could leave it just the plain black and white if you wanted, but I wanted to add a little bit more brown to my piece. Next, I'm going to make a bow. Now, I am not the best bow maker. I really struggle with this. I need to watch some tutorials on how to make bows because these are about as good as I can do. I take two different kinds of ribbon. I'm going to overlap one and then tie a simple bow with the other one, just like you would your shoes. And then I'm just going to layer those on top of each other with some twine. And that's really about it. It does look really cute, but I would love to learn how to make those really big bows. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure it out, and I am going to make a big bow in my next DIY video. So you just keep an eye out for it. It'll be good. After I've dovetailed the ends, I am going to hot glue those two bows together. And then I am going to hot glue that bow to the top of my bunny. I'm going to re-add those beads that came with the sign in the beginning. I thought that the beads looked really cute with it. And that is it for this DIY. I love this so much. I love the way it turned out. I don't know what it is about the checkers, but I think it looks so cute for spring and Easter. And I just think that this DIY turned out absolutely adorable. You are going to grab an embroidery hoop. You could also grab the bamboo hoops from the Dollar Tree, but I wanted something a little bit bigger, so that is why I chose this one. You're also going to get this edge supply off of Amazon. I will link that in my description box below, but I'm just going to start by measuring off 5 pieces going one way on the embroidery hoop. We're going to kind of make like a faux tobacco basket, that crisscross kind of pattern. So I'm just measuring the embroidery hoop where I want each of my pieces to go. In total, you are going to do 10 different pieces because you're going to have, some going vertical, some going horizontal. You are going to need 2 of the middle piece and then 4 of all of the other pieces that you cut. Once all of your pieces are cut out, I'm going to take this Waverly Wax and Antique, and I'm just going to use this as a stain. I'm going to stain my embroidery hoop in this color, as well as all of those pieces that we cut off from the edge supply. Now, once that is all good and dry, I'm going to use some gel super glue that I got from the Dollar Tree to assemble this all together. I tried hot glue. It did not work because the wax did not allow it to stick together. So gel super glue all the way worked perfectly. I just lined up my middle piece first and super glued that down, and then I worked my way out from there. So I'm just going to mark where the excess edge supply needs to be cut so that everything is nice and flush around the circle. And I would start by gluing one side down and then going to the other side, cutting off the excess, edge supply that's hanging over, and then glue that down as well. And then you can also, if you want to glue everything down first and then just take your scissors and trim around it afterwards, that works really great too. I did that as well. Sometimes your glue pops off, so you have to glue it back down afterwards, but that only happened to me a couple of times, so it wasn't too big of a deal. And then I tried to evenly space these as much as I possibly could without actually using a measuring tape. I just kind of eyeballed it as best as I could, and I did this for the whole bottom row, so you're going to have a total of 5 pieces glued down going vertically with your embroidery screw at the top. Next, you are going to take your other middle piece and you're going to go up over that first piece and then down and then over and down all the way across. Get that centered as best as you can and glued down with the gel super glue on each end. Now, when that is done, you are going to take your second piece and you're going to go the opposite. You're going to go down first and then up and then down and then up. And you're just going to do that opposite pattern so that you don't have both of the same pieces going up over right next to each other. And then you just want to try to evenly space those out as much as you can. Glue it down with your super glue, cut off any of the excess hangover, and repeat those steps for the other 2 pieces on the other side. So like I said, you're going to have 10 total pieces of your edge supply crisscrossing on your now faux tobacco basket. I grabbed one of these 6-inch circles in a pack from Hobby Lobby that actually comes out to less than $1.25 a piece, but if you want to just stick to the Dollar Tree, I do know that they have some pieces in a similar size out right now. They just have some words glued to them. You could always take off those words or just flip it around to the back side and use that. I'm just giving this one good coat of my Waverly chalk paint in plaster. And then I found these really cute farmhouse stencils at the Dollar Tree. I found a bunch of them and they look so adorable. I grabbed this one that says Farmer's Market, and I'm going to use some washi tape to hold my stencil down to my round. And I'm going to take this Dixie Belle chalk paint in Farmhouse Green, and with a brush, I'm just going to dab my brush in the paint and then dab off any excess and then do up and down motions on the stencil. You don't want to do back and forth, that's going to cause bleeding. So light layers and up and down bouncing motions with your paintbrush is perfect. Or you can also use a sponge if you want to do that. Dip your sponge in the paint, dab off as much of that paint as possible, and then lightly dab up and down with your sponge. Same technique you'll use with the paintbrush. And then I just removed my stencil, and I think it turned out so adorable. I just glued that right to the middle of my tobacco basket. And then I'm going to take this greenery that I found at Michael's. I cut a total of 4 pieces off, and I made 2 of the pieces shorter than the first 2. So these first 2 longer pieces, I'm just taking some hot glue and hot gluing this right to the top middle. And then I'll layer it with the other 2 shorter pieces. I just kind of wrapped the ends together and then hot glued that right at the top as well. So you kind of have a nice layering greenery situation going on. And then I took some lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, tied that into a simple shoelace bow just by taking 2 loops and tying those together. And then I'm also going to make a bow with some twine by wrapping that around 2 of my fingers, my thumb and my index finger, about 4 or 5 times, and then taking an excess piece of twine, wrapping that around the middle, tying it in a double knot, and you have a really cute twine bow. And then I'm just gonna layer those 2 bows on top of each other. I'll hot glue the lace bow down first, and then the twine bow will go right on top. And that is it for this DIY. I think this turned out so cute, and I think it's so much fun to use this edge supply in DIYs. It's coming super handy for frames and now this, and you could always use popsicle sticks if you don't have this, but this was super easy to cut and manipulate, so that is why I chose to use the edge supply. We are going to need 6 of these plank palette pieces, whatever it is that you want to call them. You're going to need 6 of those. And then you're going to need 2 of these galvanized pieces. And then you will need 2 of these larger plank pieces, all coming from the Dollar Tree. Now you're going to start by gluing 2 of your smaller plank pieces together. I also reinforced it by taking a popsicle stick, cutting it down, and just gluing over that seam in the middle. You are going to do 2 sets of these. Once you have both sets made, you're going to take another one of those smaller palette pieces, add glue to the inside of the little slats and then also on the ends, and you are going to stick these right up next to the ends of your other one. You can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I'm explaining it well enough. But you are going to do that on either side, so you are making a large rectangle. Once I had them at least a little bit stuck together, I took my pin nailer and went into all of the sides to really enforce it, make it stay together. You guys, I'm obsessed with this tool. It makes things so much easier. Everything's not just stuck together with glue, and it makes it that much stronger. So I just love it so much. I'm going to take those larger plank pieces, set those right on top, and I'm also going to use my pin nailer to nail everything down. I'm going to start painting this, so I'm going to take my plaster from Waverly, but I'm only going to paint the original rectangle box. I'm not going to paint those palette pieces on top because I want this to look like a farmhouse stand that you would see at a farmer's market or any kind of market where they're selling fruits or vegetables or any kind of thing like that. So I painted the rectangle box below. Now I'm also going to take some square wooden dowels. I am going to frame out the top portion of my crate with 2 side pieces and a back piece. And then I also just painted these using my own stain concoction with some brown paint and some water. I'll also use that same stain to paint the palette portion pieces at the top. Once I have those painted and dry, I'm going to start putting my square dowels onto the crate. So I'm going to just glue on the back portion just by adding glue onto those little palette sections and then adding my dowel right on top. And then I also used some Dollar Tree clamps to clamp it all in place and make sure that it glues and stays where I want it to. And I'm going to add my square dowels to the sides, and I did use my pin nailer to pin it all in place. So this is what you should have so far, this just cute little stand. You could leave it like this if you wanted, but I wanted to go the extra mile and make it even more. So what I'm going to do is take some wooden dowels. I got these from Hobby Lobby. This one I believe is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to need 2 pieces the exact same length. And then I will need 2 smaller dowels the exact same length. So 4 dowels total, all the same length. I'm going to use that same stain concoction that I've been using to stain all 4 of my dowels. And then I also wanted my stand to look a little dirty, so I took a chip brush, used that same stain, and then just kind of did a little dry brushing around the edges and a little bit throughout the crate. Next, you're going to take these crates that you can get from Michael's. You can also get some from the Dollar Tree. These were only 50 cents at Michael's, so obviously they were a better deal. I'm going to add the larger dowels to the side of the crates using the pin nailer. You're going to do one on the left side and then take another crate and do one on the right side. For your third crate, you're going to take the other 2 dowels and you are going to attach them on either side of your crate on the smaller section. And you can glue them, or like I did, I used my pin nailer to help keep them in place. Now you could opt to paint your crates. I decided to leave them the natural wood color. I am going to butt these up in the corners for 2 of them, pin them in place, and then for the middle one, I did use some glue on the bottom, and then I also did the pin nailer on the back. Now you're going to take your 2 metal pieces and make an awning. So I just bent these where I wanted them up a little bit. You could use pliers or anything to help kind of bend them if you want. And I tried to make them bent at the same place to try to get them as identical as possible. I did use a lot of E6000 and then my pin nailer to keep it in place as well. This was a little bit difficult getting it exactly where I wanted it, but just take your time and then make sure that you give plenty of time for the E6000 to set up. I also used clamps to clamp everything together and I let it dry overnight. So essentially you're just making an awning for your crate. You could forego this step completely if you wanted, but I thought it was really cute. Now I have this plaque. This actually came from Walmart. I believe it was 98 cents. And I am going to paint this all green. I wanted to have a removable sign so that my crate could be interchangeable, have things changed out year round for the season or holiday. For this one, I'm going to add some surface wax because I'm going to use a silkscreen transfer. This one specifically came from Michael's. I just taped that down where I wanted it and then used my bright white paste for the fresh market. And then below it has local goods. I used the black chalk paste to do that one. And then I did add some dry brushing to it to make it look worn as well. Now, like I said, I wanted this to be interchangeable, so I bought these magnets off of Amazon. They were a lot smaller than I anticipated them to be. That's a stack of 4. They're super, super teeny tiny. I probably would have done bigger magnets in the future. So I did end up doing 3 magnets per dowel. So in total, I ended up using 12 magnets to hold it up, but I'll link some bigger magnets that I also found that are coming in the mail that I think would work really great for this too. I did end up putting some little eyelets onto my crate as well so that I could hang a banner up, and again, I could change that banner out if I wanted to per season or holiday. Now I just made a banner with some fabric that comes from the Dollar Tree. I just cut out little triangles and glued them to some twine, tied those onto the little eyelets, and you have yourself a cute little banner that you can take off, you can trade out. The inspiration from this project did come from Melissa from All Things Crafty. If you haven't seen her version of this crate. She made a really pretty one for the fall time. I'll link her video down below if you want to check it out. Now I did grab some faux fruit from Hobby Lobby. You can get faux fruit from the Dollar Tree, but they are $1.25 per fruit, and that's just more expensive than these bundles that I got, where you got lots of different fruit, lots of different sizes, and they were $4.99 per bundle. I filled up my crates with the fruit, and that is all you got to do for this one. I think this is so adorable. I had so much fun creating this, and like I said, everything's interchangeable, so I could make this for fall, with pumpkins and acorns and all sorts of other things. I could do this for Christmas time with Christmas trees. So there's so many different fun options that you can use for this crate. For this next DIY, I took 2 signs from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take a large popsicle stick, and I'm going to use some hot glue to attach these signs together. Now I'm going to flip it to the other side. I'm going to fill in those holes using some spackle from the Dollar Tree, and then once that's dry, I'm going to give this entire sign one good coat of my Waverly chalk paint in white. And then once that is all good and dry, I'm going to take this stencil that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to stencil this over 3/4 of the entire sign. So I just used some painter's tape to hold it down, and then also to cover the parts that I didn't want accidentally stenciled on there. Since those patterns are pretty close to each other, I wanted to make sure that I didn't accidentally get those in there. So I just covered up everything that I didn't want stenciled, and then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in mineral and an old makeup brush, because I didn't have any kind of stenciling brush at the moment. So I'm just going to stencil that all on there. Now I didn't want this perfect, so I was kind of messy with it, kind of used, more paint here and less paint there, and I just did this over 3/4 of the entire sign. I would just line my stencil back up with the previous part that I had stenciled and go at it again. And I did about 3 across per row. So in total, I want to say I did 9 of these stencils across the entire sign. And then I just left the bottom portion white. And it will make more sense in a minute why I left that white. I kind of wanted that color block look to it. And then I'm also going to add something else to this sign. So I picked up this shelf for $1.49 at my local Goodwill. I'm going to take the hardware off the back, just those sawtooth hangers that have some screws in them. I'm going to remove those, remove all the other stickers and gunk that's on it. And then I'm going to go in with my Waverly chalk paint in Agave. I have been obsessed with this color lately, so I'm going to go through and paint this entire shelf in this color, making sure to get all the little nooks and crannies that are in there, and I just gave it one good coat of this. And then once I have it all painted, I'm going to take some hot glue and I am going to glue my shelf down to my sign right in the middle where the pattern ends and the white starts. And then I also took my staple gun to the back to secure my shelf to the sign even more. Now I'm going to add a wreath to this. I just took some of this burlap ribbon that I got from burlapfabric.com, and I'm just going to hot glue the ribbon to the back of the sign, and that is it for this DIY.
And I can't help but feeling, just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? Forever. Forever,
grabbed this air dry clay off of Amazon. I'll have it linked down in the description box below, but this was the very first time that I'd ever worked with clay, and I really wanted to try it out, kind of create my own vases or other kind of home decor pieces. And plus, I think that it was so much fun to work with clay, get your hands dirty a little bit, create something unique. So this was actually really fun. So I just rolled out some of that clay with a large wood dowel because apparently I don't have a rolling pin. So I just rolled it flat. I took one of these glass jars that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I just wrapped that around my little jar and then just cut off the excess pieces of the clay. And I got these little tools that I'm using from the Dollar Tree as well. And then I have a little container of water that I'm using to smooth out that clay, to attach some pieces together where I had open spaces that needed to be covered by that clay. So I just use water, and apparently you're supposed to use lots of water anyways. I didn't know that. Like I said, this was the very first time that I've ever used clay, and so it's a learning process. I am still figuring it out. So with this being the very first piece that I've made using clay, I am really happy with it, but I can't wait to try more things with it. So to add a little bit of design to my vase, I'm taking a fork and I'm just pressing it down into the clay. Pretty simple and easy as that. I go vertical one way, and in the middle I go horizontal, and then I do vertical again. And that's all I do, and I just smooth out the rim of the vase. And then I took it outside and gave it a coat of this really pretty spray paint that I have been obsessed with. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I'll leave it in the description box below so that you guys can find it. I just picked it up from Walmart. And now I wanted to create some lids. I have been seeing so many pottery pieces with these lids on top of them, so I wanted to recreate one for my own. So I picked up these circles that you can get from Walmart. They come in a pack of 6, and I didn't have anything that was the right thickness, so I grabbed 3 and I glued them together. I added some weight to it just with this paint can to make sure that all 3 layers went flat and stuck together. And then I grabbed these wood pieces from Hobby Lobby to use as a little knob on the top. I just filled the hole in the top with some spackle from the Dollar Tree. And then once my 3 pieces were all dry and glued together, I took some more spackle and went around the circle so that it didn't look like it was 3 pieces all glued together. It just looked like one seamless piece. So I am going to put that spackle in all the seams around the edges. And then once that's dry, I'm going to take some of this apple barrel paint. I mixed it with some water so that it was kind of more like a stain rather than a super opaque paint. And I am just going to paint both of these circles and both of these knobs because I will put this on another jar that I'm making in this video. So I wanted to create 2 lids. So I just paint the entire thing. And then once everything is nice and painted and dry, I'm just going to take some wood glue. I apply it to the inner portion of those little knobs, and I glue it down to the middle of the lid. And that's all you have to do for this project. I think these turned out so cute, and for faux lids, I think they look really adorable. They're not super functional, but if you're just using it as decor pieces, I think they turned out so cute.
Give me all your love, oh, 'cause I want you. No one else makes me feel this way, don't know what you do. Hold my hand, could you hold my hand, look me in the...
I'm
going to take these 12-inch wooden planks that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I picked up 4 of these, and what I'm going to do is cut off the ends, trim them down because they weren't all the way even, and some of them had pretty rough ends. So I took this out to my miter saw, cut those ends off, and then cut each of them in half. So you are going to have now 8 pieces instead of the 4, and you're just going to try to get those as even as you possibly can. So I am just going to remove all those stickers, and then we are going to make a little planter out of this. So what I'm going to do is take 2 pieces, some E6000, and then I attempted to get these to stick with just the E6000 and some gel super glue. It didn't work very well. And I didn't want to use some hot glue in between each of the wood planks because the hot glue doesn't allow it to get completely flat together. You kind of have some spaces in between there. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. So in the end, I ended up taking some popsicle sticks and cutting them down and gluing them on the back seam so you wouldn't see it on the outside and there wouldn't be any gaps in between those planks. And that helped keep these together much better. You are going to do this for all 4 sides of your crate. Now to attach all of your sides together, I took some Jenga pieces from the Dollar Tree, added them to each side, and used those to help glue down each side to each other, just to give it a little bit more surface area and to help add some support to each side. So I would just add my side, get that little Jenga block, add some glue, and attach the Jenga block to both of those sides. And you're just going to do that for all 4 sides. Now I have these 1/4-inch dowels that I actually got in a big pack from Lowe's, I believe. Melissa from All Things Crafty did this on a toolbox, and I thought it turned out absolutely gorgeous. So she inspired me to add these dowel pieces to the front of this crate. I will link her video and her channel down below where she did this on her toolbox. That video, all of her DIYs were so gorgeous. So make sure that you check her out. Now I'm just going to kind of add a little frame to the front of this planter. So I just take my dowels and I'm just taking my miter shears and cutting these down and just trying to make sure that I get all 4 pieces the correct sizes. So your top and bottom piece should be the same size, and then your 2 side pieces should be the same size. And then I just add some hot glue to the sides and assemble my little frame. And then I use some super glue on the back to adhere it to the front of my planter. So for the bottom of the box, you could use a piece of wood and you could cut it down. I just decided to go with a piece of foam board because it would be a lot easier to do that than to try to measure out and cut a piece of wood. But if you wanted a wood bottom, you can definitely do that. I just cut out a piece of foam board just for the ease and the quickness of trying to get this DIY done. So I'm going to take some Italian sage paint from Folk Art and I'm going to give the entire thing one good coat. I did make sure to paint on the inside of the crate as well, just in case you saw it, and then you wouldn't see the natural wood through it. So I just painted all over. I did only do just one coat for the entire thing. Now once that is all dry, I'm going to take some white chalk paint and I'm going to go in the middle of that little frame that we built on the front. And I am just doing a very rough coat of paint on this. I want it to look really rough. I'm just going around the edges. I'm not trying to make it look perfect or anything, just getting as close to that edge as I can without getting it all over the frame. And I just do that around the entire middle portion of the frame. And then I took this rub-on transfer from a pack from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to just cut this down as closely to those black lines as I can. One thing that I wish I would have done after the fact is maybe not even use that black frame that's on the rub-on transfer. It just made it a little bit too hard to rub down in there because it was a pretty close fit to what this frame was. So if I could go back, I probably would have just cut that black frame off and just used the words on the inside. I did end up messing up a little bit with the frame portion of it, but in the end I still think it turned out really cute. And I just use a popsicle stick to just rub all over, and then I just peel up that top carrier sheet. If anything's coming up as I'm pulling this off, I just lay it back down, rub back over it, and then keep pulling the carrier sheet off. And then for any of the parts that messed up, I just took a chip brush and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I just kind of dry brushed over it a little bit, try to make it look like I did that on purpose, that I messed up on purpose, that it was supposed to look a little bit rougher than it is. And then I just added my foam board to the bottom, added some florals, and this is how this DIY turned out. You are going to take 2 of these wooden planks that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take some of my on the farm transfers from Dixie Belle. These are rub-on transfers that I absolutely love, also linked in my description box. This is what all of them come with. I've done a DIY with the big barn and I loved it. If you want to check that DIY out, I will leave it linked in my description box. These transfers are super awesome. I love all the little details. I just think they're so fun. Anyways, I am going to take my transfer, lay it on there, and I wanted my wood cut down quite a bit. I didn't want the sign as large, so there wasn't so much wood on each side, and I just took that out to my miter saw and cut that wood down. Now I'm going to adhere this with some E6000 and gel super glue. I push them together and then I set them to the side to allow them to dry for a while I cut out my frame. So I actually had these 1-inch dowels already at home, but you could use some of the smaller wood planks from the Dollar Tree for a frame if you wanted. I just prefer the square look to the frame, so that is why I just decided to use these instead. Now I just roughly measured how big I needed each piece for my frame, and I just took these out to my miter saw and cut these down, and then I grabbed some Waverly chalk paint, added that to the back of my sign. I did a really rough coat of this. You can still see some of that natural wood peeking through, and that's how I ended up keeping it. So I just painted the sign, and then I'm taking some water-based stain on all 4 of my frame pieces. This water-based stain is no longer available. It is from Craftsmart and they don't make it anymore, but I have it in my stash. I want to use it up. Any water-based stain or just regular stain that you want to use will do. I just prefer water-based stain because it dries quicker. It doesn't have a gross smell, so I can do it in my craft room. I don't have to take it outside and stain it. So I just stain all 4 of my frame pieces. Now I'm going to set my frame pieces to the side to dry. I'm going to add my Dixie Belle transfer to the front of my sign, and I just tried to get this as center as I possibly could, and I am going to use a popsicle stick to start rubbing this onto my sign. Now one way that I like to do this is just kind of to rub and then start peeling up the carrier sheet, rub some more, lift up the carrier sheet, and this kind of allows me to see if any spots aren't sticking down all the way, so I know where to rub over it. And then I just kind of rub and pull as I go, and I think it turns out great every single time. Like I said, the detail of these is absolutely gorgeous, and that's why I love using them. So I'm just going to add a little bit more detail around the sign. I just take a piece of sandpaper and rough up all the edges and allow that natural wood to peek through on the sides and all the corners of the sign. And then I take all of my frame pieces and do the exact same thing. I'm just taking my sandpaper and running along each of those edges, and then just do a really rough sanding on all 4 sides of all 4 of my frame pieces. Now I'm going to assemble my frame and my sign with some E6000, and then I do add a little bit of hot glue on each of the ends so that they can have that quick hold, and then the E6000 will allow that long-term hold. And I just add my bottom piece first, get that nice and stuck together, and then I will adhere my top piece. And that is it for this DIY. This turned out super cute. I think this is adorable, especially if you like farmhouse decor. And as soon as I have my front entryway table set up, that's where this one's going.
So I'm going to grab one of the smaller boxes out of the two sizes that they had, and this sign from the Dollar Tree as well. I actually really loved this sign, so I did pick up a couple of them just so that I could have one on its own. But I loved how small this was, and I loved that it had those indentations for kind of like that shiplap wood look. And I'm going to take some of my Craftsmart parchment chalk paint, and I'm going to give this 2 good coats to cover up all the green from the front of the sign. Once I've got that painted, I'm going to take this stir stick just to use as a straight line guide. I'm going to repaint those lines on there that were on there previously, and I'm just going to do that by using my Waverly Antique wax, and I just drew 2 lines on there to give that shiplap look back on the sign. Now I'm going to take that same brush and I'm just going to start kind of distressing the sign. I'm going to go on the top and the bottom and all along the sides, and then I'm going to take my brush and kind of lightly brush streaks all over the sign, and then I'm going to set that to the side to dry, and I'm going to slightly distress my box just so that it will kind of match the sign. And I just did it all over the sides and the corners, and then I painted with my antique wax again just over the entire top portion of the box. Now I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to rough up this sign. I wanted to make sure that those lines and little dashes were pretty faded. I love the way that this makes the sign look, just because I feel like it makes it look a whole lot more rustic and distressed. It makes all the lines really faded, and I just prefer this look over leaving it the way that it was before. Now I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to place that onto my box or drawer, and I'm going to hot glue that and my sign together. I'm just going to place the box at the very bottom and push those 2 pieces together. Now you could use stickers for this part. I tried using stickers, and the stickers that I had, it just wasn't working. So I ended up ruining a bunch of my stickers. So I went and cut a decal out with my Cricut that says welcome. I'm just going to use my Expressions vinyl transfer tape. I get questions about it all the time. I always have it linked down below. And I'm just going to place that in the middle of my sign, remove the transfer tape, and then I'm going to take some foam from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to hot glue that to the bottom of my drawer. Now I picked out a bunch of my solo wood flowers that I have. This is just an assortment that I have from a whole bunch of different assortments from them. Whenever I get my solo flowers, I always just cut them open and dump them into my bin. So this is just a mixture of a bunch. The majority of these, I believe, are their minis, which I love. And I just placed them on the table to see which ones I thought I was going to use. And I'm going to take some of this farmhouse ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use some to hot glue around the bottom portion of my sign. I just thought this was a cute little added extra touch. I'm going to hot glue some Spanish moss on top of my foam just so that it covers that green up. And then I'm just going to start hot gluing my solo flowers down to the box. Just kind of played with the arrangement a little bit. Really just kind of eyeballed everything. Another thing that you could do if your hot glue isn't sticking to that Spanish moss and foam very well, I took some floral wire and you can stick that in the bottom of the flower. I would add a little bit of hot glue just to make sure they wouldn't come off, and then I would just stick the wire down into the foam, and that worked really well also. And after I've gotten all of my flowers right where I want them, I'm going to take some greenery that I had and I just kind of chopped it up into little pieces, and then I just started sticking them all over in between the flowers. And I just thought this really added a good touch to the flowers. They weren't so just plain. It added some fun greenery to the mix as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is take some twine. I'm going to wrap it around the top portion of my sign a couple times, tie it in a double knot, cut off the excess twine, and that is it for this DIY. I'm going to grab one of these standing picture frames that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by removing that middle frame. It just has some screws in it, so with a little flathead screwdriver I'm able to remove those. I also sanded down where those holes were because it did have little ridges that stuck up higher than the frame, so I just used some sandpaper to sand those down. I'm going to grab some of my scrapbook paper. This is my welcome home pack from my website, and I am just going to pick a piece out from here. I just grabbed this kind of faux shiplap wood look, trace that out with a pen, and cut that paper out. Then I'm just going to add some glue to the back of the sign, add my paper, and set that to the side. Now I'm going to take one of these laser cut wood pieces from Michael's. I want to say that this was under $1, and I'm going to use this Folk Art Italian Sage acrylic paint. Do you see a theme here? This paint was kind of the theme of this video for the most part. And then I'm just going to give this one good coat of that color. Once that's done, I'm going to take my surface wax from Couture and the little applicator, and I'm going to go over the entire sign with this wax because I am going to be using a decal over the top of this. And I prefer to add wax to anything that I've painted just so that I don't get any bleeding. I personally have found that helps me a ton when applying my chalk paste to my transfers. So I'm just going to set that to the side, allow that to dry for a little while. In the meantime, I'm going to grab these 1/4 inch dowels that I picked up in a pack from Lowe's, and I'm going to take several of these out because I'm going to make a little frame for around this sign. So I just lay my dowels out, get them in the position that I want them, and then with a pen I'm just marking where they need to be cut. And then you're just going to cut each of these pieces twice, so the top and bottom are going to be the same size, and then the two sides are going to be the same size. Now I'm just going to take my Waverly chalk paint and ink and give each of these dowels one good coat of paint. I'm going to take my Country Kitchen transfer from Couture. I'll leave it linked down below. Also, if you're watching this today, June 16th, Couture just said that they are having a flash sale with 50% off on a pack of 10 retired mystery transfers. So if that's something that you're interested, I'll leave it in the description box below with the link and you can check that out. But I'll also link this transfer down below as well. And then I just take my chalk paste on a little squeegee that paste on over there, and then pull up the transfer, and it turned out gorgeous. All you're going to do is take your transfer to the sink and wash it so that you can use it again. Now I'm just going to assemble my frame together using a little bit of gel super glue on all the ends, and I just adhere all those ends together around the sign that I just made. And then once your frame is all nice and stuck together, you're going to take that entire piece, add some hot glue to the back, and then adhere it to your larger sign right in the middle, and that is it for this DIY. I'm going to take several pieces here. So I'm going to take one of these garden blossom tags, I believe that they're called, this round tag that you can pick up from Dollar Tree. I picked up a wooden dowel, a wooden bead, and some wooden rings. The beads and the wooden rings I picked up from Amazon. I will have those linked down below if you're interested. And I'm just going to start off by spackling the holes of the bead and the round tag so that everything is nice and seamless. There are no holes in anything. And then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and truffle and I'm going to give a coat of that to all of my pieces. And then once those are nice and dry, I'm going to take some glue and I am going to hot glue my 3 rings together. I'm going to hot glue all 3 of those down to that circle. I'm going to add a whole bunch of hot glue in the bottom of there and I'm going to hot glue my dowel down, and then I will hot glue my bead down to the top of my dowel. Now I'm going to take some white paint with a chip brush and I'm just going to distress this entire thing all along the bottom, the dowel, and the bead. I just kind of wanted to give it that chippy white look to it, rustic, distressed, all the good things. And then I'm going to take one of these hooks that I picked up in a large pack from Amazon. I'm going to add some hot glue to the back of it and then I will hot glue it down to my dowel. And then I have some of this greenery in a vine that I think that I got from Walmart, I want to say, and I just twisted that up along my dowel. I added some greenery to the bottom of my rings so that they were kind of poking out. I'm gonna grab one of these white buckets that you can get from the Dollar Tree, added some florals in it, added my bucket to my hook, and that's it for this DIY.
You and me, yeah, that's all I need, and I'll be alright. I'll be right here. I swear that I'll stay here with you. Hold me closer. I wanna stay here with you.
So for this one, I'm going to take a square sign from the Dollar Tree. This was during their Valentine's Day season. I'm going to take this picture from the exact same calendar that I've used in my previous 2 DIYs, and I'm just going to start cutting it down. So I didn't want this home word on the top because I do have another piece that says home that I'm going to use. I am going to take this Cricut straight edge tool ruler. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's really, really helpful. It's from Cricut and it makes my life so much easier. So I just drew a straight line to get that home word off of there. You could also use an X-Acto knife. I don't know why I didn't do that in this instance, but I just cut that down. Now this picture is not going to fit this sign completely for what I wanted to do with it. So I tried to find a piece of scrapbook paper that was going to match the best to the shiplap kind of look on the back of the calendar sign. So I found this scrapbook paper at Hobby Lobby that I had in my stash. I cut that down to the size that I need it, and now I'm going to start gluing everything down. So I'm just going to use my glue stick and apply that to the back of that Dollar Tree sign. And then I'm going to take my calendar portion, I'll glue that down, and then I'm going to take my scrapbook paper and I'm going to slightly overlap the calendar picture on top of that, and then I'll just go through with my X-Acto knife and cut out all of the excess paper that's around the sign, get in those little notches so that you can see them from the front. I think that's such a cute little detail that the sign has. So once I have all of my excess paper cut out, to blend the 2 pieces of paper in so they don't look like 2 separate pieces of paper, I'm going to take some of my mineral chalk paint from Waverly, and on a chip brush, I'm just going to start distressing everything. So I'm going to go over the scrapbook paper in this, I'll go over the calendar picture in this. I'm just trying my best to get these two pieces of paper to match. It's not going to matter too much because I am going to be covering up the majority of the bottom piece of this sign, so where that scrapbook paper is, but I just wanted it to look a little bit more natural, not so, you know, like I stuck two different pieces of paper on there. And then I'll go in with my black chalk paint as well, and I just kind of do some dabbing here and there, get some black splotches everywhere. Again, just trying to blend these two pieces together. So I felt like, you know, for it being two different pieces of paper, it looked pretty good in the end. So I'm just going to take a black paint marker. Now you could leave this the way that it is, but I wanted my words to really stand out. So I just traced over all of my lettering in this black paint marker. This is from Arteza. I'll link those down in the description box below. I absolutely love them, and these were super easy to work with. So I just go through and trace over all of my letters. Now I picked up this home sign from the Dollar Tree. It comes on a little stand. I removed the stand, and I'm going to paint this all in my Craft Smart paint in parchment, I believe. And I probably could have taken the greenery off to make it a little bit easier while painting, but I didn't want to mess it up. So I tried my best to just paint around it. And I did probably about 3 coats of this color parchment paint. Covering up everything is not the easiest, so it did take several coats. And then I just slid this back onto the stand that it was on originally. I'm going to apply hot glue all over the back of it and then towards the bottom where the stand is. And I'll put that on the bottom of my sign, push it all together, and that's it for this DIY. It can stand up on its own, and I just think this turned out really, really cute.
You are going to grab your paper bags. You're also going to grab a scallop punch. I picked this up from Hobby Lobby. I believe this is a 3-inch punch. What I'm going to do is start cutting off the bottoms of my bags. Now, the easiest way I found to punch out of the bags is to cut them down. I cut them into 3 pieces, and then I stacked them all on top of each other and then cut them down again. You could also just fold it over in half and punch it that way, but I just cut mine into 3 different sections, added them to my scallop punch, and then punched out a whole bunch of these little scalloped rounds. I probably used a good 10 to 12 bags, I would say, for this project. You need quite a lot. You may need even more depending on the size of your foam ball. So just go ahead and punch out as many little flowers as you think you'll need. So to do this, I'm going to take one of my scallop pieces and I'm going to fold it 3 times. So I'll fold it in half once, I'll fold it in half again, and then I'll fold that one in half. So you're going to fold your piece 3 times, and then using my detailed Surebonder glue gun, I'm going to poke a little hole into the foam ball, add some glue, and then I will just stick the bottom of our little petal right down on inside there. So to show you again, you're going to take your scallop piece, fold it in half one more time, and then fold it in half again. You're going to want to make sure that you're not creasing all of the edges. You want to try to leave them as intact as you can. I did crease the bottom point just so that I had a nice little point to go down inside the hole that I'm creating. But other than that, you want to make sure that you're not creasing the sides as best as possible. And then you're just going to go through, add your hole, add your glue, and then stick your petal on in there. And you are going to do this over and over and over again until your entire piece is covered in those petals. This is one of those mindless crafts, but it kind of takes a while. In fact, my 5-year-old was watching me while I did this, and she said, "Mom, is this hard work?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "I think that you may need to go a little faster." So I was not cutting it when it came to how fast I should be crafting, but this does take a good while to get the entire thing covered up. So another thing that I would probably recommend is to paint your foam ball brown. That way you're not seeing all the white in any of the holes that may be poking through. I tried to go through and cover up as many gaps as I possibly could, but you're still going to see some of that white foam through it. So if you don't want that, paint your foam ball brown before you do this. Now I made a little hole in the bottom, stuck a dowel inside of that hole. We are going to take a terracotta pot that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint the entire thing white, and then just to make it look a little bit more grungy, I'm going to take some of this Dixie Belle Voodoo stain, and I just took it on a paper towel and kind of wiped it around the entire thing. I didn't want a super opaque look. I wanted it to be a bit more faded, which is why I chose the stain. And then I just kind of placed the stain anywhere that I wanted. I just wanted it to look grungy and dirty, so I just went around the entire thing with it. I did want a little image on the front, and I forgot about these little transfers that I purchased from Michael's, and it had a little bee, which I thought was perfect. I just added that to the very front, and then I used my Couture chalk paste and a little squeegee to paste over the top. And then you just pull your little transfer off and reveal a super cute little bee on the front. I took another foam ball, added it to the inside of my terracotta pot using some hot glue, and then added my dowel to the pot, just sticking that right down in there. Before I glued it down though, I'm going to take some twine and wrap that around and around and around the top part of my terracotta pot. And then I did tie just a really simple school shoelace type bow right in the front, and I glued it in place so that it wouldn't come undone. I'll add some glue into that hole that we made with the dowel, add my dowel back inside of there. To cover up the foam ball at the bottom, I took this moss that I got at the Dollar Tree, added some hot glue to the foam, and then just kind of pushed that down in there to give it more of a finished look. You could also do rocks if you wanted. I had some of this twine slash faux greenery twine that you can get from, I think I picked this up from Hobby Lobby actually, and I just hot glued this to the top of my piece and then spun it around and hot glued it to the very bottom, and that's all you got to do. You have a paper bag little topiary that I think is adorable. Like I said, paint that foam ball brown, then you won't have any of that white peeking through. You could do this with several different sizes if you wanted. I think it looks super cute, even though it took a good couple hours to do. I still think this one turned out adorable. I grabbed this big sign that came from Hobby Lobby. Now I wanted a very large sign. You could use these slat planks that you can get from the Dollar Tree. You'd need 3 of them. I just didn't want the seams in the middle. I wanted one seamless piece, but this is a Dollar Tree option that you can do if you don't want to go to Hobby Lobby and purchase the larger sign. Now I'm going to start by painting the entire thing white. Again, I am not going to worry about getting this perfectly covered. If some of that wood still shows through behind the paint, that's perfectly okay with me. I am going to grab one of these frames from the Dollar Tree. I took the inserts out, and I'm also going to take some sea spray from Dixie Belle. I'm going to put that in a little container. Now you only need a little bit, especially if your piece is this small. You really don't need too much of the sea spray. You're going to add your paint in with the sea spray and mix it all up. If it's still too thick and chunky, I would add more paint to thin it out a bit, but I wanted to use the sea spray to add some texture to the frame. I didn't want it to just be a seamless, creamy frame. I wanted there to be some texture to make it look grungy and old. We are going to go in with some rub and buff as well to help with that grungy look a bit. But for now, I'm going to give it 2 coats of this paint. I'm using a cream colored paint with the sea spray as well. And then I'm going to take the back of that insert that came with the frame and I'm going to give that 2 coats of white paint. Now I'm going to use that same Mylar stencil that we used in our very first project, and I am going to checker the entire piece. I don't know what it is about checkers this year, but I think that it is so pretty and so fun. I just love it a lot. You'll probably see more checkered DIYs in the future, but I just think it's so much fun. So I'm going to go through, lay down my stencil, and add some paint, lift it up, add some paint, and do that until my entire piece is covered in the checkers. Now once that is done and my frame is dry, I'm going to take some bronze rub and buff on a paintbrush and I am going to dry brush over the entire thing. Again, I wanted this to look weathered and old and give it some fun texture and detail to it, so I just kind of dry brushed over the entire thing. Now I got these rub-on transfers from Essential Stencils. These were the first time that I'd ordered from them and used them, and I can say I am very, very impressed. If you want a link, I'll leave it down below, and you can also use the code LizMoore to save 10% off of your order. But I love these. I think they're so cute. I love the bees and the flowers and the honey pot. I just love it so much. So I'm going to cut this piece out. I'm going to insert my backing into the frame and add the rub-on transfer on top. Essential Stencil sends these little scraper tools with your order, so I use this to scrape on the transfer and then scrape and pull at the same time, and then you have a really pretty image into your frame, which I just love so much. Now again, I wanted my piece to not be totally stark white and black. I wanted kind of that boho rustic vibe to it. So I'm going back in with my Waverly Wax and Antique and waxing the entire thing. And then I'm going to glue my frame down right to the middle, and that is it for this DIY. I think this turned out so adorable. I love it so, so much. I love those Essential Stencil transfers. I just think they're so pretty. And then just the whole thing, I'm just loving it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you like the checkered for spring or Easter or just in general, let me know your thoughts on it. For this DIY, which is probably my favorite from the entire video, I found this cute and adorable Highland cow wearing a floral crown nursery art on Creative Fabrica's website. I will have all of these files listed down below, so if there's one that you want, you can find it easily. But I decided to make this into a decoupage piece. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of tissue paper. This is actually tissue paper from the Dollar Tree. It just comes in a pack of, I believe, 35 pieces. And I'm going to size this down to a piece of printer paper. So what I did was cut it down. I'm using some washi tape to hold it down to the paper. So I cut my tissue paper just slightly smaller than the printer paper itself, just so that there was enough room that I could attach that tissue paper to the printer paper. I'm going to try to smooth the tissue paper out as best as I can, making sure there are no bubbles or wrinkles, and then I will put that washi tape down to hold it all in place. For the side that is going to go down into my printer, so feeding down through it first, I'm going to put a piece of washi tape across the entire thing. That way there are no snags when it's going through my printer. So I put washi tape all over it, and then I just put it through my printer and print it out. So here it is, all nice and printed, and I think it looks gorgeous. I'm going to take that. I'm also going to take this blank from the Dollar Tree. I had actually painted this white in a previous project that I ended up not doing, so I already had it painted white for me. I'm going to remove my tissue paper print from the printer paper, and I am going to cut it down. So I'm going to kind of cut around the cow itself. There wasn't enough to just Mod Podge the the entire tissue onto the surface. If I had moved the image down just a little bit, I would have been able to do that. But since I didn't, I decided to just cut around the cow. So I changed my mind several times when doing this DIY. At first, I had antiqued it. I wanted to do a crackle effect with this, and the antique, it just wasn't dark enough for my taste, so I decided to grab some Waverly chalk paint and truffle, and I painted the front and all four sides in this color. I let that completely dry, and then I'm going in with some Elmer's glue. I am going to go over the entire thing, so the front and all of the sides. While that glue is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and use my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to brush the paint on. Now you want to make sure that your strokes are going in the same direction, and I go over the front and the sides with that white paint. Now I'm going to take my heat gun and I am going to heat it on up to dry it, and that is what is going to bring those crackles out. And I think this looks really fun. I also have just a crackle medium that is from, I want to say, Folk Art. Don't quote me on that, I'm not positive, but either way works. You can buy the crackle medium or you can just do the Elmer's glue technique, and I think it's really fun. You can see as my heat gun goes over it, all those crackles start coming out, and I think it gives it such a fun rustic and farmhouse vibe to it that I'm just obsessed with. After that's dry, I took a little bit of sandpaper to all the edges just to rough it up a little bit more and give it more of a distressed look. I don't know if you can give it more of a distressed look with it already looking the way that it is, but that's just a touch that I added. You can skip that step if you want. So you're going to apply a layer of Mod Podge on top of your piece afterwards. You're going to want to make sure that it is completely dry after you've Mod Podged on the top. You're going to set your printed out tissue paper on top of your piece. Again, make sure that your Mod Podge is completely dry, and you are going to place your cow where you want it. You're going to take a piece of parchment paper and lay that on top. Now I'm taking my Cricut mini heat press on all the way high, and I am going to go over that cow. We are reactivating that Mod Podge, making it sticky again, and making it so that you don't have any bubbles or wrinkles when you're putting your tissue paper on top of your piece. I don't normally like using Mod Podge specifically for those wrinkle and bubble reasons, and this technique has completely changed the game for me, and I think it looks great. So the last thing I'm going to do is just sand off the little bit of tissue paper that's on the edge, do a little bit more distressing, since apparently I needed to add, just those final little touches of distressing to my piece. And I just took some brown truffle paint, went around the corners, just a little bit more distressing to the edges, and that is it for this one. I love this so much. If you know me, I love Highland cows. I think they are so gorgeous, and I love having these little art pieces in my home, and this one is my favorite from this video by far. So the things you will need for this DIY is some scrapbook paper. This is the Farmhouse Living scrapbook paper pack from my website. I'm going to take this sheet with all these cute little pictures on it. I'm going to use this Farmhouse Sweet Farmhouse picture. You're also going to need a laser cut wood piece from Michael's. Again, I think this is less than $1. And then you are going to take some fabric from the Dollar Tree. This Farmhouse one is super adorable, and I'm also going to take one of the bamboo cutting boards from the Dollar Tree. I am going to start by taking my bamboo cutting board and laying it on the back of my fabric and tracing it out with a pen and cutting that fabric out as close to the same size as that bamboo cutting board as I possibly can. You'll be left with a little bit of overhang, at least I was. That's okay. We can take some scissors and cut it off later, but I'm just going to take some Mod Podge and adhere my fabric to that cutting board using that Mod Podge. So I just use a really generous amount, spread it all over that bamboo cutting board, and then lay my fabric down on top of it and getting it as smooth as I possibly can. And then, like I said, going around the edges with some scissors to get all of those hanging pieces off of there. You could leave it like this and have it adhered to it. I decided to add another layer of Mod Podge over top of it, so all the fabric was nice and stuck down to my cutting board. And I just used a little sponge to apply that Mod Podge over the entire piece. Next, I'm going to take that scrapbook paper and cut out that farmhouse, sweet farmhouse. And I am going to be tracing this on top of that laser cut piece that we got from Michael's, because I didn't have anything in my stash that was quite this size. There are little square pieces that you can get from the Dollar Tree, little square wood pieces, but that one was a tad bit too small for this one, and I wanted this to be the size of the picture. So I just cut that down using my miter saw out in my garage. And then I'm taking some Waverly Wax and Antique, and where the other sides are laser cut, they have that dark finish on the sides, and I wanted this to match. So I just used my Waverly Wax to paint the sides, and then I also went around the top edge a little bit and blended that in with my finger just to give it a little bit more of a rustic look to it. Once I am done with that and I have glued it to the middle portion of my cutting board, kind of middle and down a little bit, not completely center, because I am going to add some greenery to this DIY. This is just greenery that I got from Michael's, and I took 2 little sprigs and hot glued them to the top of my sign, took some lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, tied a really simple bow with it, glued it to the middle of my greenery, and that's it for this DIY. Really easy, and I think this turned out super cute. I'm going to take one of these signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Now, I decided that I wanted to flip this over onto its back instead of trying to scrape all that glitter off, and I wanted this little wood piece at the top still, so I just took that off with a flathead screwdriver, and then I'm going to pop out all the staples. I'm going to use my heat gun to get the sticker off the back, and then I'm going to go in with my Waverly white chalk paint, and I'm going to paint this entire sign in this color. Now, I kind of debated on keeping it a little more rustic and not painting it all the way, but in the end I decided to just give it one full good coat of this paint. And then after I've got that painted, I'm gonna go in with my Waverly chalk paint in mineral. Now, I didn't use a chip brush like I normally use to distress, and I wish that I had, because it just isn't the same. I feel like when you're distressing with a regular paintbrush versus a chip paintbrush, it just gives a different look, and I don't enjoy it as much as when I'm using a chip brush. So to kind of fix the parts that I didn't like, I just went back in with my white chalk paint just to kind of go over it a little bit and make some of the lines that were a little bit too harsh to fade a little bit, just to get it the way that I liked it. Now, I am going to take this, it's actually a paintbrush holder that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, but I needed a circle, so I'm going to trace out the circle on the middle of my sign. I mostly needed this just to give myself a bit of a template. And then I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to trace out the circle on the bottom, and then I'm going to cut that circle out. I don't do it perfectly, and I make sure to leave a little bit of space from the line that I drew. And then I'm going to take my glue stick and put some glue on the sign itself, and then I'm going to glue my scrapbook paper down to my sign. Now, I'm going to take my solo wood flowers. You guys know how much I love these, and I just went through the assortments that I had and picked out some colors that I liked, and I felt like this green, orange, and pink just looked so pretty together and looked so spring. I took forever to figure out how I wanted to put all of these flowers down where I wanted them to go, but I just started hot gluing them down once I figured out the placements of everything and got it the way that I liked it. Now, when I was hot gluing these down, I guess I was smushing them together more than when I was just playing around with the assembly of them and how I was going to put it down. So I ended up with a little bit of a gap at the top. I'm going to use a ribbon anyways and make a bow to kind of cover that gap up at the top anyways, so it wasn't too big of a deal. Now I'm going to take these transfer letters that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out the letters to spell Hello Spring. You could use other stickers if you have them. You could even cut yourself out a decal if you have a cricket or a silhouette. Really, whatever your heart desires, whatever you have on hand, just use that. I tried my best to get them as straight and centered as I possibly could. If you've done these before, it's not the easiest to get them straight. I need to figure out a hack or a way that I can get them all perfectly straight and aligned. I'll have to figure that out one day. But I am going to take this ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and I'm just going to tie a simple shoelace bow with it. It's really easy. I just mess with the loops until I get it the size that I want it, and then I'm gonna hot glue that down to the middle between those two flowers where you see that little gap at the top. And then I wanted the tails on this ribbon to be long, so I am going to hot glue the ends of them to the flowers where they're touching. So it kind of gives a frame for the flowers, in my opinion. I think it looks really cute, but you could add a hanger for the back if you wanted so that you can hang it on the wall. I just left mine as is, and this is the way that it turned out.
Give me love, give me all your love, oh, 'cause I want you. No one else makes me feel this way, don't know what you do. Hold my hand, could you hold my hand, look me in the eyes. You and me, yeah, that's all I need, and I'll be alright.
So I'm going to start with 4 of the drawers. You're going to need 2 big ones and 2 small ones. I'm going to start by removing all of that metal hardware on all of the front, and I'm going to hot glue my 2 big drawers together, and then you're going to hot glue your 2 small drawers together. Now I wanted to be able to put a paint stir stick on the second layer, so I wanted to make sure when I hot glued my smaller boxes down to the bigger boxes that there was going to be enough room for that paint stir stick to sit right on top so it wouldn't go over the top of the 2 larger boxes. Hopefully that makes sense. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to hot glue my set of 2 smaller boxes right to the top of my 2 larger boxes. So this is what it should look like when you have all those glued together. You'll just have that little lip of extra space at the top. And then I'm going to take some paint stir sticks and I'm going to measure out where I need to cut them. Now these stir sticks weren't big enough to go across the entire bottom portion of those boxes, so I did end up cutting them in half, and the middle is just going to meet right up the middle of those 2 boxes. I just took these to my garage and cut them. You should have 3 pieces at this point. I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique and I'm going to use it like a stain and cover all 3 of my pieces in this. And then while those are drying, I'm going to take a chip brush and that same antique wax, and I'm just going to distress my piece so that it has that wax on it so that it matches the paint stir sticks. I wasn't worried about these being completely covered and completely matching. I actually like the fact that those pieces on the front are going to be a little bit different. I just think it's extra and fun. And then I'm just gonna hot glue down all of my paint stir sticks to the front of my boxes. The longer piece is gonna go onto the top portion and the 2 smaller pieces are gonna go onto the bottom portion.
And then once those are all in place, I'm going to take all the hardware that I had taken off previously and I'm going to put them all back on, and I'm just going to screw them into my paint stir sticks. It was a little bit difficult to get them all in there, but I got them in there eventually, and I think that it turned out really, really cute. So this is what you should have so far. I am going to decorate this using some Spanish moss and some succulents. I used a mixture of succulents that I had from Walmart and Michael's. This one in particular I got from Walmart, and I think it's so cute. I love how long it is, but in the end I decided not to use it because I do have these other smaller hanging succulents that I could use, and I wanted to keep my really long succulent for a different DIY that I may need that really long succulent piece for. So I just chopped up a couple of my succulents into smaller pieces, and I'm just going to start by adding my succulents into my boxes, just arranging them by however I think it looks good. I just eyeballed everything, played around with the arrangement until I was happy, and that's all you have to do for this DIY. I think this is so cute. I love the succulent boxes. I just think it's absolutely adorable. But I'm digging the succulents right now. It's summer here in Arizona basically all year round, and you can never have too many succulents. You're going to grab one of these signs from the Dollar Tree. I like this one in particular because you can remove that frame from it. Then you're not having to take out your painter's tape and try to tape everything up, or you're not having to try to make your own frames. So that is why I like these signs. And then I was going to try to remove all the glitter from the front, and the paper was just kind of peeling off. So I went ahead and removed it all, and underneath wasn't really the texture that I was looking for, so I decided to just turn it around to the back and use the back side. I just removed those staples that were in the back, and I'm going to go in with my Waverly chalk paint in white. I'm going to go ahead and do one good coat of this. I didn't go all the way around the edges just because that frame was going to be covering that up. I wasn't too worried about getting all the edges completely covered. Now I cut out this decal for my Cricut design space. I just went into the images section and typed in the word tile and found this cute design. I just duplicated it 6 times and welded them all together to make one big piece. Now I'm just going to use this as a stencil. So I'm going to go through and weed it the opposite way, taking out all the pieces that you would normally leave in. Now I'm going to use my Expressions vinyl transfer tape. I always get questions about this whenever I use it, so it will be linked in the description box below. Now, a little trick that I like to do whenever I'm using my vinyl and I have a larger piece like this with so many different pieces to it, I want to make sure that I get this on my sign just right without messing up and having it stick down to it when I don't want it to. So I'm going to take a piece of wax paper. I'm going to lay my decal on top of that wax paper, leaving just a hair of that vinyl off of the wax paper so that there is just a little bit of stickiness to it. So when you get it where you want it, you can just stick that portion down, remove that wax paper, and then lay the rest of your your decal on your sign. This allows you to move your decal around without it all sticking down. I like to be able to get it just where I want it before I stick everything down. Then once I got that on there, I am just going to remove that transfer tape and I am going to begin stenciling. I'm going to use this apple barrel paint called Admiral Blue, and that's what I'm going to use to go over my sign, and then use this stencil brush to do light layers all over the stencil. When you're stenciling like this, you want to make sure that you're doing up and down motions. Like I said, with just some light layers, I do go over it about twice because I don't want so much paint on there all at once to potentially leak or bleed underneath the stencil itself. So I just made sure to take my time, do those up and down dabbing motions, and then I will start removing that stencil. So I'm just going to take my weeding tool from my Cricut and I'm going to begin removing the vinyl from it. The paint does make the vinyl rip apart pretty easy, so this kind of is a lengthy process, but I think it's so satisfying to watch it all come together. So I just went through and used that weeding tool to peel off all the vinyl from my sign. Once I've got all my vinyl removed, I'm going to go ahead and glue that frame back down to my sign. I just took some wood glue, hot glue. I do get questions about this as well, so that is going to be linked in my description box as well. Any kind of tools or anything that I mention is typically linked down there if you want to take a look, if you're ever interested in what I'm using. And this is how this sign turned out. I think it is so cute. I've seen a lot of bathroom tile looking like this, or even kitchen backsplash tile, and I always think it's absolutely gorgeous. So that was my inspiration for this piece, and it is by far one of my favorites.
It's a known fact, yeah, I know that.
All of these calendars that I have are from previous years. This is a 2020 calendar, and I love so many of the prints in this calendar. So for the first one, I'm going to take this mason jar one that says thankful, grateful, and blessed. I'm going to cut that calendar right out, and then I'm going to take one of these weed it and reap signs that you can also pick up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start by tracing my little mason jar out around that sign. Now in the end, I just ended up cutting out the mason jar altogether, so you don't necessarily need to do this step. You just cut the mason jar straight out of the picture, and of course you're not going to be able to get all the florals cut out from the picture itself, so I was okay with some of those florals sticking down on the mason jar. I'm going to use some florals that are pretty much the same color as those, so that it's just going to blend all together. So you can see here, I'm just cutting my mason jar completely out from the picture. And after that's done, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in Elephant. It's pretty similar to that darker color in the mason jar, which kind of looks like the background of the picture in the mason jar. So I just did probably about 1.5 coats of this color on the entire sign. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to take a glue stick and glue my calendar picture right towards the bottom of the sign. And after I've got that done, I'm going to take my good old Solo wood flowers. You guys know how much I love these. I will always have them linked down in my description box. They're so much fun to use, and I just love all the different colors. I always just dump my Solo flowers all into one big bin. These are my minis, and they're just from a bunch of different assortments of flowers that I have. And then I'm going to take some little greenery pieces that I keep in my stash of little clipped greenery, and I'm just going to begin hot gluing everything down. Like I said, I'm going to use these coral colored flowers on top of the coral colored flowers that were on the mason jar, if that makes sense, so that it all just kind of blends in. And then I just kind of started gluing the flowers where I thought that they would look pretty. I like to place my flowers kind of in an arrangement before I start gluing as well, so I can kind of get an idea of what I want it to look like. And then I just snip my little greenery pieces even more and put them in between my flowers, start making it look like more of a bouquet, and add some greenery in between the flowers. So it all just kind of comes together that way, and I absolutely love the way this looks. I did something a little bit similar several videos ago where I did rain boots and then sola flowers coming out of the rain boots. I'll link that video up above if you want to check it out, but I just think that it is so much fun to create little bouquets on signs like this with your sola flowers. I just think they are gorgeous. So I'm just going to take some of this lace ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree. All I'm going to do is wrap a piece around the top portion, hot glue it in place, and then do the same thing on the bottom. And then to finish the top off, I'm just going to create a little bow just by making 2 loops and tying them together like you would your shoes, so like a little shoelace bow. And I just mess with the length of the loops a little bit until I get it the size that I want it, and then I'm just going to hot glue that to the middle of the other piece of lace that's on the top of my sign. I'll angle cut the tails for my bow, and that's all you got to do for this DIY. You're going to take a stretched canvas that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I already went ahead and removed the canvas from the frame, and I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm just going to lightly go over this. I mostly just did a heavy dry brushing technique to it just to give it that color of the plaster, but then still allow some of that natural wood to peek through. So I'm just going to do that over the entire frame. So once I've got that all dry, I'm going to take some scrapbook paper. I got this paper pack from Joann's. It has a really pretty blue shiplap design in there, and I'm going to take that. I am going to take my frame and trace around the back of it. I'm going to cut that paper out, and then I'm going to start hot gluing the paper to the back of my frame. And I mostly just did the corners when I did this. I wasn't worried about going around all of the sides because later on I will be stapling it down as well. I'm going to take that canvas that I removed from the frame earlier. I'm just going to trim down the sides, and then I'm going to attach that to the back as well. This is going to give it a nice finished look, and then as well it's going to give it a little bit more sturdiness so you can't just poke a hole through the back, so then your paper isn't getting ruined. So I'm just going to start by hot gluing it, and then I will use my staple gun that I got from Amazon, and I'm just going to use that to put some staples in each side just to give it a little bit more security so that it does not come apart from the hot glue. So I'm going to take one of these windmills that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I picked some of these up last year during that spring season. I actually had to go to a different state to find them. But I am going to remove the windmill from the welcome sign. I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in Silver Lining and Elephant, and I'm going to start giving this a galvanized look. I just start with the shade Elephant, and I'm just doing kind of a dabbing motion up and down just everywhere on that windmill. And then I'm going to take one of these natural sponges with the shade Silver Lining. I'm going to dab my sponge into the paint, dab off the majority of it, and then start going over the windmill with that as well. And then I will go back over it with the elephant on top of the silver lining color. So you just want to kind of go back and forth until you get the desired look. Now I'm going to take some super glue because hot glue really does not work with these metal windmills. It just is going to pop right off. So I just took some super glue to attach that to my sign. And then I just made this Love Lives Here design with my Cricut. I will leave a free printable down in the description box below if you're interested in it. Or if you have a Cricut, I will also have a link to it in Design Space. So I'm just going to go through and weed out my design, and then again I'm going to use my Expressions Vinyl Clear Transfer Tape. The nice thing about this is it does come in a 6-inch and a 12-inch roll, so when you're doing smaller projects like this you're not wasting a ton of transfer tape, so that is another reason why I really like their transfer tape. So I'm just going to cut that out and then stick it right at the bottom of this sign, adhere the decal to the paper, and then I'm going to remove that transfer tape, and that is it for this super cute windmill sign.
I hope I be something that you won't let go. I'll be your high when you fall down low. I hope I be your end destination. You're far away.
I'm going to take one of my larger boxes. I'm going to take these feet, like I said, that I got from Hobby Lobby. Again, I don't know exactly if they're feet, but they were a really interesting design and I really liked it. So I'm just going to use my heat gun to get those stickers off the bottom. I'm going to take the hardware off of the front, and I'm going to start by just heavily distressing all of the sides of the box in my Craftsmart chalk paint and parchment. I didn't want to fully coat this with the paint. I just wanted it to be just a heavy distressing. I still wanted some of that wood grain to show through. And I also did the exact same thing with all 4 of the feet. I just distressed them so you could still see some of that natural wood peeking through. Now I'm going to take some scrapbook paper that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I am going to trace out the top portion of it and get that all cut out. Once that's all cut out, I'm going to take a glue stick and run that over the whole top of my box. Technically it's the bottom of the box, but I'm going to be using it as the top. I'm going to take that scrapbook paper and lay it right on top. And then I'm going to re-add my hardware back to the box. And then I waited for that glue stick to dry to the paper for a little while before I went in with some Mod Podge. I wanted to make sure that the top portion of this, the paper wasn't gonna get all scratched up and damaged, so I wanted to use some Mod Podge to make sure that it was sealed in and it would be a bit more durable. And then I'm gonna take those feet and I'm gonna add some hot glue, and I just pushed them right up against the top where that little lip is on the feet. You can just add that right to the top of the edge of your box. I did that with all 4 of my feet, and that's it. I think this makes the most adorable riser. I love the greenery scrapbook paper on the top, and I just think that this turned out so adorable.
I grabbed these 2 tags from the Dollar Tree. This bunny napkin came from TJ Maxx. I thought this was so beautiful. I love the bunny, and I asked you guys on Instagram and Facebook if I should still use it in some DIYs even though Easter was over, and you all said yes, so here it is. I'm going to take those tags, add a layer of Mod Podge onto both of them, and I just spread those out. I'm going to let them completely dry because we're going to be doing the iron-on method, which has quickly become a favorite of mine, and I feel like one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're not getting any wrinkles in your paper or napkins or whatever it is that you're using. I know there are so many different methods out there. I want to try the saran wrap one. I just haven't yet, so I'm just going to stick with what I know works for me at the moment. And I'm going to pull apart my napkin, make sure that I only have the one ply that's going down onto my piece. I just centered that onto one of the tags, added some parchment paper on top, and then using my mini heat press from Cricut all the way on high to reactivate that Mod Podge. I like starting in the middle and then working my way out to make sure I'm not getting any bubbles or wrinkles in my piece. I had a lot of people ask if you could use a regular household iron, and you definitely can. This is just more convenient for me because of how small it is, and I can store it in my craft room. For the other tag, I'm going to use some paper that comes from my website, moorevinyldecals.com. All of my paper for the month of April is all on sale. I'll have it linked below, but any kind of paper pads, single papers like this, stickers, stencils, all the fun things, those are all on sale for the month of April. So if you want to check it out, I'll have it linked below, but we're going to do the same technique that we did with the napkin, just adding that paper on top and then putting my mini heat press on top of it to reactivate that Mod Podge, and I was wrinkle free, which is amazing because I normally don't like using Mod Podge. I normally just like using a glue stick, and even that has some problems sometimes, and this method worked so well for this. So I'm really excited because this will make my life so much easier when I'm wanting to put paper on things. I just cut off the excess using an X-Acto knife. And then I'm taking a piece of sandpaper to the napkin and I am sanding off all of those edges that are hanging over. I'm going to layer these on top of each other using some hot glue. I just put the bunny on top of the other tag and kind of put it a little bit at an angle so that the bottom corners were matching up. I strung some twine through the holes at the top, and then to finish it off, I added a little bit of distressing around all the corners just using my Waverly Wax and Antique. You could leave it as is, but I personally like things to look a little bit more weathered, and I feel like it has a little bit more dimension to it when I do it this way. But that's all you got to do. I think this is so pretty hanging in the middle of a wreath, or you could just set it on a shelf, whatever you want to do with it. But I think it's really pretty, and I love these colors for spring. It just makes everything feel so cheery and bright, and plus that bunny is absolutely adorable. Surprise, surprise, another Highland cow. I am just obsessed, but this is a Highland cow with sunflowers SVG. I'm going to cut this out on my Cricut. For the blank, I'm going to take this $3 wooden canvas. This comes from their more expensive section, their plus section. I personally don't have any in my stores. I got this in a pack online and shipped it to my house. So I like these so much because I love the wood, and I think that they look very high end when you have finished them all. So to paint this piece, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax in Antique, and I am going to stain all of the sides, so the frame and the backing. I like using the wax as a stain because it's not smelly, and I can use it inside my craft room without having to deal with any of those fumes, and I just treat it like a normal stain. I'm going to wipe it on, and then I will wipe off the excess. For the middle of my sign, I am going to paint it white. I just did one coat. I just tried to go around the edges as best as I can to not get any white paint on the frame, and I just painted the entire middle. Next, I wanted to do a faux shiplap, faux wood kind of look to this, so I'm taking a wooden paint stir stick. I cut it down to be the size of the inside of my frame, and I am taking a brown paint pen and just using that paint stir stick as a guide to draw lines on my sign. I also wanted to do some vertical lines, so I'm just taking that same paint pen and my paint stir stick to get some straight lines on there, and I just kind of did this randomly, no pattern to it, just wherever I felt like a line needed to be. I'm going to go through with the back of my paintbrush, dipping it into some brown paint, and I am making those little nail holes on each of those vertical lines. I'm going to rough it up a little bit with some sandpaper. I wanted this to have a more faded look to it, so I'm just going to use my sandpaper to go over the entire thing and make it look a little bit more rustic and distressed. I cut out my vinyl, weeded it, added it to my transfer tape, and centered it onto my sign. And then I will just peel that transfer tape off, and you get this really cute farmhouse sign with your Highland cow and some sunflowers that I just love. I think this is absolutely adorable. Again, I love Highland cows, so it's got to be one of my favorites. It was so much fun to do, and it was really easy to create this beautiful piece. I wanted to make a large sign, so I grabbed 2 of Dollar Tree's large sign pieces like this. Now I'm also going to grab the Just Peachy transfer from Couture. I'm going to lay this on top and measure where I need to cut off the excess sign. We took this out to my garage, cut those down. Now I'm going to glue them together just using some popsicle sticks and some Gorilla Glue hot glue that holds really, really well when you're hot gluing wood pieces like this. So I just held everything up with those popsicle sticks and the hot glue. Next, I'm going to take some wood filler and I am going to fill in that crack right down the middle so it's less noticeable when the whole sign is finished. Everything will look a lot more seamless. Now on Checkered's website, they have some cut files for some of their transfers. So for this Just Peachy one, I bought the cut file for it. You can use this with your Cricut. I used it with my laser cutting machine and I cut out the pieces with wood. So I'm going to have more of a 3D effect. Like I said, you could do this with your Cricut and use their chalk suede paper. I am going to paint my bees black. I'm going to paint the peaches in a plaster color, and then for the Just Peachy portion I also used that same plaster color. These are just background colors that you'll see in between the transfer colors that you're going to put on top of that. If you are interested in wanting these cutouts, let me know in the comments and I may add them to my website. I'm also going to paint the main sign in that plaster color as well. I did end up giving this about 2 good coats. I am going to be using some of this veneer stripping that you can get off of Amazon. I like using these as frames. I just think that they're really fun. So I just framed it all out, cut my pieces, and then painted it using the Waverly Wax in Antique. Now again, taking that surface wax from Couture, I want to make sure that nothing bleeds. I want to make sure that the paint that I put down is not going to peel up. When you're using porous surfaces like wood, you want to make sure that you seal everything in, and I personally find that it helps with the bleeding. Now my first step is I am going to lay my transfer down, center it as best as I can, and I'm only going to be doing the peach slices. Anything that is whole is already cut out from wood, so I don't need to paste that on there. So I'm going to use a couple different colors for the peaches. I believe I used peach cobbler and orange peel, I want to say. Not positive, but I'll have it in the description box below so that if you want to check those colors out, you can. I did the paste and peel method where I paste my piece and then peel it up. That way the paste isn't drying to the transfer itself. If you're like me and you're a little bit of a slower chalker, I personally like this method, so I have less mess ups and I don't have to repeat the process. For my peach halves that show the pit in the middle, I did one color on the outside and then a darker color in the middle. Now for all of my other pieces, I went through and matched up the wood cutout to the peach and to the bumblebee on the back, flipped it over, and then I will start chalking each of those peaches. Now, I completely spaced the leaves when I was doing this, and I just pasted everything that peachy orange color. So I did end up having to go back and I just hand painted over the leaves so that they were green. So if you're actually paying attention, you can go through with just a green paste while you're doing this, save the time of having to hand paint over the orange. But I just went through one by one, did all of my peaches, and then did all of my bumblebees. I went through with my bees with a yellow on top and got all of my bees done as well. Lastly, with the transfer, I laid down my Just Peachy on top of the cutout. And then I believe I used Sunset Drive to go over this. I'm terrible with the names of these colors, so if you want to know exact colors, I will have them written down below in the description box by the project. I'm going to start gluing the Just Peachy down first. Once I did this, I realized that I wanted to add my veneer wood stripping frame on first so that when I put the peach cutouts on, I didn't run into any issues with them overlapping. Now, this veneer stripping does have some glue on the back. All you have to do is heat it up. I use just my heat gun and heat from the top, and then I take a flat piece. I just had flat piece of wood, a dowel, and I just scraped over the top, pressing the veneer down, making sure that it's all nice and stuck to the sign. I trimmed where I needed to make it all fit, and that's all you got to do to make this really cute frame around here. If you wanted to, you could just tape off and paint a frame on, but I personally think the veneer is fun. It's a fun little decorative piece. And then lastly, I'm going to go through, glue all of my wood pieces down, my peaches and my bumblebees. I just use the wood glue super glue that you can get from the Dollar Tree. And that is it for this one. I love making big signs out of Dollar Tree products because sometimes sign blanks can be really expensive, but the back only cost me $3. And I think that is a steal of a deal when you're making large signs.
Now, I had a completely different vision for this. And when I say vision, I mean my husband would call it a blonde moment. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to blame it on being tired, and my mind just didn't put two and two together here. So I'm going to take a smaller box and a bigger box. I somehow thought that dowels were going to work for this DIY. 4 dowels in the corners. My mind just did not think about the fact that the dowels were not going to fit onto the smaller box to the big box. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So first, I'm going to take some more of that scrapbook paper. I'm going to do the same thing like I did in the previous project, where I trace out the bottom of my box and cut it out. This scrapbook paper had this adorable flower cart on it, and so I wanted to place that on the top of my box. Again, just doing the same method, using a glue stick, applying my scrapbook paper, and then doing some Mod Podge on top. Now you can see I am going to start hot gluing my dowels to my box right in the bottom corners. You're going to see here me figuring out what the heck am I doing. This is not going to work. Adding my top box to it and going, yeah, that does not fit. I tried everything to get it to fit. Again, do you ever just have those moments when you're doing something, you're in the groove, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the heck am I doing? It's not going to work. What? I completely messed up. So, in the end, I went and grabbed a piece of a table leg that I had purchased and used for a different project. I cut it down to the size that I wanted, and I added some clear Gorilla Glue and then some hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue this to the middle of my bigger box, and then I will hot glue it to the middle of my smaller box. And then I'm just going to fill it with some other decor pieces, some flowers from Solo Wood Flowers, and some other greenery, and just make it look all cute. And this is how it turned out. I'm going to grab one of these wired baskets and some nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. That's where both of these are from. And I'm going to start by hot gluing this nautical rope all around the bottom portion of my basket. I just used a full thing of this nautical rope. I just went all the way around. It went probably about a third of the way up my basket. Now, my idea for this was to add a canvas bag on the inside, but when I took this canvas bag that I had from burlapfabric.com, it was way too small. For some reason, I thought that it was going to be big enough to fit inside there and kind of pull it over the edges, but it wasn't. So I just kind of winged this whole portion. I took 2 of those canvas bags. And I mean, and honestly, I could have just ran out to the store and bought some canvas fabric, but I wanted to use what I had. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to spend any more money. So I just improvised and used what I had on hand. So I'm going to cut both of those bags down the seams, and then I'm going to start attaching them just with my glue gun. I just made a big bag, basically. It is really as simple as that. And then I wanted the top portion to have a finished edge, so I just folded it in and then hot glued it down. Now I'm going to put that inside my basket, and in doing this, I made way too big of a bag. So again, I just had to kind of improvise. So I just started hot gluing the bag down to where it meets the nautical rope, and I'm just pulling that bag tight so that it goes all around the basket itself. And then where there was a little bit too much fabric, I just kind of overlapped it, kind of folded it in a little bit, and then hot glued it down. So it wasn't really too big of a deal. And then I'm going to grab this ribbon that you can get from Walmart, and I'm just going to put this right in between where that nautical rope and the canvas meet, so it's kind of covering up that seam, and I just hot glued that all around my basket. Now to fill the basket, I'm going to take some lamb's ear that I got from Walmart. I put in 4 picks in total, and then I picked up these peaches that you can get from Walmart. I thought these were so cute, and I just love this color for spring, the peachy kind of color, and I just threw all those on top, and that's it for this DIY. I thought it turned out so cute, and I love the peach basket.
Hold me closer, I wanna stay here with you. All that we have is each other now. I promise I won't leave your side.
Next one is so simple and easy. I'm going to take one of these Wi-Fi signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to pop off that little square on the front. I love tag signs, and I absolutely love that this was kind of a medium size. It wasn't like the big tags like they have in their home decor section. This is just like a good medium size, so I was really excited when I found these. Now I'm going to take another picture from that same exact calendar. I'm going to cut that one right out, and I'm going to kind of place it on the back of that tag sign and try to get an idea of where I need to cut it. Now I just started cutting it into a square. I'm not going to fully cut it to the exact tag size quite yet, just to cut it down and be able to go through, and I cut it out with an X-Acto knife. That's what I found works best for me. So I just used a glue stick, and I'm going to glue that picture right down to the tag sign and get it exactly where I want it. And then I'm just going to take my Cricut X-Acto knife and cut off all the excess pieces of calendar around all of the sides. I'll go through with my X-Acto knife and cut a hole where that hole is on the top of the tag. And then I'm going to take some twine. I'll wrap it around the bottom portion of my sign, probably about 4 times. And then I'm going to tie a double knot. And after I tied my double knot, I decided I wanted kind of a chunkier knot look to it. And I probably tied about 5 to 6 knots on top of that. And then all I'm going to do after that is take some more twine. I'm going to loop it around probably about 4 or 5 times. And I'm going to string it through the hole on the top of my tag. And then I'll tie it in a knot at the top, cut the loops, and cut the excess twine towards the top so it's all nice and even. And that's all you have to do for this DIY. I think this one turned out so cute, and it looks like such a cute sign. You never would have known that this was a calendar from the Dollar Tree. You are going to need 2 of the 12-inch chunky slats and 2 of the 10-inch chunky slats that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue these together so they make a frame shape. So I'm going to take my 12-inch slat, add some of that super glue wood glue on there, and attach it to my 10-inch slat. And then I'll just do the same thing for the other side. And then I'll add some glue to my other 10-inch slat and glue it to the ends of my 12-inch slats. Now I'm going to take these paint stir sticks. These are the 21-inch ruler sticks technically. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. And I'm going to take 8 of those, and I just measured it across my frame. From the inside to the inside is where you want to measure. I just marked it with my pen, took all 8 of those outside and cut them down. I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in white to give them one good coat. So this DIY was a little bit of just kind of like a wing it DIY. I was just winging it as I went, and I probably should have glued all of these together first, but I wanted these all to stick together, and I thought that I was going to glue them into the frame separately, but I ended up not doing that. So anyways, you could just glue these all together first and then do the next steps. Either way works. So I just took some washi tape, stuck it on the back so that all my pieces would be stuck together, and flipped it back over, added some of my Couture surface wax for a transfer. And while that wax dried, I am also going to take some of these 1/4-inch square dowels. So you can see that there's a little bit of a gap on each side when I put those inside the frame. So I could either try cutting down little slivers from the paint stir sticks, or I could use these because this worked perfectly. So I just took those dowels and I started measuring those out to go inside my frame. And I cut 2 of them down to be able to fit down inside the frame with the paint stir sticks. And then I cut 2 more the exact same size because I decided to do kind of a little border on the inside of this. So I cut 4 the exact same size, and then I cut 2 the exact same size in widthwise, and I just measured those all out, used my miter shears to cut them out. Now I'm going to use a water-based stain to stain my frame and all of my square dowels. Just use whatever your favorite stain is. Unfortunately, this one is no longer available. They don't make it anymore, but I wanted to be able to use it up before it went bad. Now I'm going to set those to the side to dry all the way. I'm going to take my Couture Farmhouse tile transfer. This is one of my favorites. I'll link it down in the description box. I love using this. And I just stuck that right on top of all of my paint stir sticks. And I used the chalk paste in eucalyptus, and I just went over that entire thing.
Now I added my frame to those paint stir sticks and I just kind of pushed them around so they all fit. I added those 2 little dowels to each side, and then I am going to put some glue down and add those other dowels that were the exact same size right on top of it. And then I'll also take those longer dowels, add some glue, and make a little inside frame around the backing. And then I flipped it over because I wanted to make sure everything was going to stay put, and I added the glue in between each slat, and with a paintbrush I just kind of painted over it. Again, you could have glued all of these individual slots together beforehand. This was a total just wing it moment. So I did things the hard way. So I just added glue to each slot to make sure that they were going to stick together. And that is it for this DIY. You could use this as a tray. You could use this as a sign. You could also put some rope handles on the end if you wanted to use it as a tray, but I just think it's super cute either way. You're going to grab yourself some paper bags, some terracotta pots. I got mine from Hobby Lobby. They were $1.99. I preferred these because they didn't taper. They were the same size all around. For this project, I felt like that was important. So the first step that I'm going to take is to cut my paper bag down. I cut it just a couple inches taller than what my pot was so that I could fold over the top of my bag 2 times. So I just folded it over once, tried to get it as even as I possibly could, and then folded it over a second time. I'll put my pot inside of my bag just to make sure that I have it the height that I want it, and I want it to be sticking up just a little bit over the pot itself. And then I will scrunch up my bag multiple times, make it look really wrinkly and worn. I don't want this to look like a perfect bag at all. I want it to be very wrinkled up. So I will go ahead and place my pot back inside of my bag, and then to make sure that my pot doesn't move around and that the top of the pot doesn't show, I did add some hot glue around the very top of the pot and glued the bag down to it. You don't have to do this, especially if you're going to want to reuse those pots. So you want to be able to just take it out of the bag. You don't necessarily have to glue it to your pot. I grabbed out a combination of some ribbon and some twines. This ribbon came from Hobby Lobby and it's a really pretty lace ribbon. I just cut it down the middle because it was a little bit too wide for what I wanted for this project. I'm going to wrap it around my pot and then tie it in a double knot in the front. I'm going to repeat that process using some white twine and then using just some regular twine that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm just tying them all in double knots, and that's it. That's all you got to do for this DIY. This is super simple and easy, and I think that this looks really pretty, especially with some greenery inside, or you could add some faux flowers. I think this one turned out really cute. You're going to take one of these mason jar signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Now, I tried my best to scrape off those flowers and leaves on there, but they just kind of melted off and then were sticking all weird, and I just could not get them all completely off and clean, so I decided to just use the back. I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to trace out the mason jar on the back of that scrapbook paper, and then I am going to cut it out. And again, you don't have to be perfect when you're cutting this out. I tend to cut it out a little bit bigger so that I can go through with my sandpaper and get a nice clean edge that way. I'm going to use my glue stick again just to attach my scrapbook paper to the back of my mason jar.
And then, like I said, just using that sandpaper technique to go around all the edges of that mason jar to get all the extra and excess piece of scrapbook paper off of your sign. Now I'm going to take this ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby as well. I'm just going to wrap that around the top portion of that mason jar, add some hot glue, and hot glue it in place. I'm going to take these rub-on transfers that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut out that middle wreath there, and I searched everywhere for these. So when I finally found them at my Dollar Tree, I may have picked up like 4 sheets of this. So I love the watercolor look to it, so I had to grab it and use it in this project. So I just took that wreath, centered it where I wanted it, and then I just started rubbing all over the rub-on to get it nice and stuck on there. And then I just removed that clear sheet from the rub-on. I'm going to take some twine, wrap it around that ribbon that we put on before about twice. I'm going to tie a double knot and then cut off the excess twine, and then I'm going to make a twine bow just by wrapping it around my thumb and my pointer finger about 3 times, taking an excess piece of twine, tying a double knot in the middle, and then cutting off the excess on the tails. And that's all you have to do to make these super cute bows. I'm going to add some hot glue to it, add it to the middle of that twine and ribbon, cut off the excess. And then lastly, I just took a sticker that I had for the letter M and put it right in the middle of my wreath. And that is it for this adorable farmhouse mason jar.
Forever, I watch you as you sleep. You don't know I'm looking. With you everything's complete. Do you know how much I love you? I put your favorite song on.
I'm going to take some nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to unravel the entire thing. It comes in 3 pieces, so with 1 piece of nautical rope, you can unwind it and get 3 strands. I'm going to take a mason jar. I just had this left over in a pack that I think I picked up from Joann's last year, but you can find jars like this at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to start hot gluing that nautical rope all around my entire jar. So I just started at the bottom, and then I'm just going to wrap the nautical rope around and around and around until I get to the very top. I would have to hot glue probably the entire bottom portion of it, and then as I got around to the middle, I didn't have to use as much hot glue. I could just wrap it around and then hot glue the end. And then when I would come to ends where I needed to add more nautical rope, I would just hot glue both ends right together, and then I would continue wrapping my nautical rope around and around until I got to the very top. And then once I got to the very top, I did add another layer of nautical rope on top of the lip of the jar, so you weren't going to see the very edge of the top of the jar. And then I just took the remaining nautical rope and hot glued it down inside of the jar. Now I'm going to make some tassels using some white string. You can get string or yarn from the Dollar Tree. And I just cut out this little template, and I basically just measured out 3 inches, cut a little notch in the middle, and then use that as my template for my tassels. I just did it out of cardboard. So I just wrapped it around about 16 times, and then I will take some more string and wrap it around the top portion of my tassel, tie a double knot, and that's it. It's really easy to make these types of tassels, and I made 5 of these. And then once I've got all of them made, I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to cut all the loops and then give it a little haircut. Make sure the bottom of the tassels are all nice and even. And then I'm going to take another piece of string, and I am going to string all 5 of my tassels onto it. And then once those are all stringed on, I am going to wrap these around my jar, and I just tied a double knot in the back. Then I just messed with the arrangement a little bit, kind of tried to get them all evenly spaced. I'm going to flip my tassels over so that I can wrap some string around the jar multiple times. I just kind of wanted a messy look around the jar. Once I have it the way I like it, I tie another double knot to secure the string in place, and that's it for this DIY. I think it turned out really cute. I just added some florals that I have inside there, but really you could add whatever you wanted in this jar, and this is how it turned out.
I watch you as you sleep. You don't know I'm looking. With you everything's complete. Do you know how much I love you? I put your favorite song on just to wake you up. When I dance around, I can't help but feeling I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know?
You are going to grab some metal tags from the Dollar Tree. I chose these coppery kind of hammered look tags. You are just going to need one of those. You are going to take these rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. Now this video is the first time that I've used these transfers. I had never used them in the past, and I actually really like them. I feel like they rub on easier than the other transfers from the Dollar Tree. The only trick to it is that you really have to make sure that you're holding your paper in place because it will move around super easily. So for this one, this was kind of an experiment, hoping that this would work because of all the ridges from that tag. I didn't know if this was going to go very well, but it actually turned out really cute. So I just used my fingernail, or I tried to use a popsicle stick to just sit and rub that on to the tag. And once that was done, this is how it turned out. I think that it looks so pretty. I love it. So after I've done that, all I'm going to do is take a beaded garland from the Dollar Tree. I use one end and it already has some string hanging off the end. So I just use that to loop it through the hole on my tag, and I tied that in place. And then I'm going to take this ticking fabric that's also from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut 2 strips out with it. I just kind of folded it in half and then cut long ways on there, and I'm going to use this as kind of a mini tassel. And I just take that fabric, I figure out how long I want those strands to be, and I cut that in half. So you are going to be left with 6 strands of fabric. I just kind of crisscrossed these all on top of each other and added a piece of twine to the very middle to scrunch these all together. And then I used the string from the other side of the garland to attach the fabric to the garland. I took another piece of twine and wrapped that around the top portion of the tassel and just wrapped that twine all around several times. You could make this as chunky or as skinny as you want it, and then tied that twine in a double knot. That's it for this DIY. Super easy. Again, farmhouse, easy, cheap. It's all the things I love. We are going to take some of Dollar Tree's long wooden planks. Now I am going to glue 2 of them together using the Dollar Tree wood glue super glue. So you'll add your glue, and then one thing that I found very helpful was to use a little clamps that you can also buy at the Dollar Tree and clamp your wood pieces together. I also filled in those holes using some wood filler, so make sure that you do that as well. Give that plenty of time to dry, and then you're going to take one of the smaller wood planks that also come from the Dollar Tree,
add your glue onto that, and you are going to center this in the middle as best as you can. Now I'm going to take one of these small palette pieces that again come from the Dollar Tree, take that sticker off and take the twine off as well. We are going to use that for our base. Now I recently picked up this tool from Amazon. It's like this little mini miter saw, and this is perfect for cutting dowels. I like my miter shears, but sometimes I find that they chip the ends. So I decided to pick this up, like I said, from Amazon. I'll have it linked below. It is the perfect little tool for cutting your dowels, little tiny pieces that you need. I'm obsessed. I don't have to go out to the garage and use the big miter saw that I don't enjoy using. So this was like the perfect mini desk piece. I am cutting dowels because I am going to frame out the bottom and the top of this. We are making a sign holder. Now, the only complaint with this tool that I have is it does get dusty and there's really not a good way to clean it. So I just took a paintbrush and kind of dusted all the sawdust off onto a paper towel so then I could throw it away. I'm still trying to think of other ways to make it a little less messy, but we'll see. So I'm going to add my main piece into the slat of that palette piece and then add one of my dowels to the bottom, front and back. You're going to glue that on to the front and the back. Those dowels should be the same size. This is also going to help attach your main tall piece to your plank piece at the bottom. Now, another tool that I am just obsessed with right now, it's making my life so much easier, is this Ryobi pin nailer, and I'm also going to use this to help attach those dowels to the main piece. I just did a couple nails on the front and a couple nails on the back. I'm going to add some glue to both the bottom pieces of those dowels and then insert the main piece into that middle slat on the bottom. So I add some glue and then I'm also going to do the pin nails to help hold it in place. Now I wanted to do a little extra decorative touch, so I did some smaller dowels and a little bit shorter from the original dowels that we have, and I'm going to glue those to the front and the back right on top of the original dowels that we put on. I also used my pin nailer to help hold those in place. Now for the top, I'm just going to kind of mimic what I did on the bottom. I'm going to add a dowel to the top and then add the smaller, shorter dowel right below that. And then you can also use your Dollar Tree clamps to help clamp everything in place. I found these little wood rounds from Hobby Lobby and I thought that they would be the perfect piece to hang your signs from. So I grabbed one of those, but I wanted it to be a little bit taller. So I have these scrap little wood rounds. I glued those together and then I'm going to glue that to the top middle. And I also did a little pin nail in the middle because why not? Helps it stay in place. I made my own stain just with some brown paint and some water. I'm going to go through and just stain the entire piece. I'm going to take the farmer's market calendar that is super popular from the Dollar Tree. I know these were really hard to find, but if you didn't know, the woman who illustrates all of these pictures has an Etsy shop where she has other prints that she puts up for sale, and I want to say she has these ones on there too. I'll link her Etsy page in the description box below, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. If you weren't able to find this calendar, you can go on and purchase her prints and they are beautiful. So I'm going to take the home frame that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove everything from the back and I'm going to take the glass in there and trace out this page from this calendar with the little creamery milk picture. I just thought this was so cute. So I'm just going to cut this down to size. I'll replace it into the frame, I'll add the backing back in, and then I'm going to take some extra little greenery pieces that I had. I'm just going to kind of cut them down and hot glue them in that top corner of the frame. And once I have all of those glued down, I'm going to take this farmhouse ribbon that is also from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to make a simple shoelace bow out of it. I'll dovetail the ends
And then I'm just going to hot glue this right in the middle of that greenery. And that's it for this DIY. I think this turned out so cute. This was so simple to make. It probably took me 10 minutes and I absolutely love this one. I'm going to grab some paint stir sticks. I picked up a 10-pack from Lowe's. I'm going to take 4 of those paint sticks, and then I'm going to take these wooden planks that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to measure out the length of the plank to the paint stir stick, and then I will cut those paint stir sticks down to that size. And then I also cut one of the planks to use as the sides. I'm going to make a little basket out of these. So first I'm going to start by painting all of my pieces in my white Waverly chalk paint. So once those are all nice and painted and everything is dry, I'm going to take this chicken wire ribbon or chicken wire in a roll. I picked it up from Hobby Lobby. I'm just going to cut a piece out that matches the length of those paint stir sticks. And I just used some hot glue to attach them. I was going to use some staples, but my staples would have gone all the way through to the front and I didn't want that to happen. So for now, I just added a ton of hot glue and it seems to be holding up okay. And I am just going to hot glue that chicken wire down to 2 of my paint stir sticks. And I'm going to slide that right in and attach it to the side piece and the bottom piece of my basket. And then I'll just go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. I attached it to the side piece and the bottom piece. And then I'm going to take my last side piece and I'm going to hot glue it to both of my chicken wire sides and to the bottom of my plank. Once that is all together, I'm going to take some of these rub-on transfers that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. I just cut out these little flowers. I'm going to add it to a corner of my basket just to give it a little extra something. And then I just threw in some lamb's ear from Walmart, some of my sola flowers, and that's it. Just decorate it the way you want it, and you have a super cute chicken wire basket.
Be who you are and you'll be enough. If you're giving me your love, giving me your love, all that we have is each other now. Promise you won't leave my side. I hope who I am is enough for you. If I'm giving you my love, giving you my love, love.
I'm going to grab some caulk that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm also going to grab one of these metal baskets, metal planters that you can also get from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to start putting caulk all over the outside of my planter. You're going to want a pretty thick layer of this on your metal basket. So I'm just using my finger to kind of smooth it all out. I'll add more, smooth it out, and I'm going to do that over the entire outside of our planter, just making sure to get it as thick as I possibly can. I probably could have gone even a little bit more thick than I did, but this was the very first time that I tried this, so I was kind of just winging it and seeing what worked. So after I get all of that caulk on the entire outside of our planter,
So I'm going to take the back of a paintbrush and I'm going to go in circular motions all over my planter and in the caulk. I wanted it to have a cool design to it. So this is what I came up with, and I'm just doing it randomly. I'm not doing it in any sort of pattern. So you can see I'm just taking that paintbrush and swirling it around. If the caulk started coming off of the planter, I just kind of mixed it around a little bit more to kind of cover up that tin. And I'm just going to do this same technique over the entire thing until it looks the way that I want it to. And then as you can see, as my paintbrush pulls up, it kind of pulls the caulk with it. So I just took the end of my paintbrush and kind of dabbed those down so I didn't have like little spikies all over my planter. And then I left that to dry overnight, and in the morning I took this metallic Rust-Oleum spray paint in gold, gave it a good couple of coats. I filled it with some lamb's ear from Walmart and some of my solo wood flowers, and that is it for this DIY.
I watch you as you drive. Do you know I'm looking? And I can't help but smile. Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on. I put my feet up, and we just sing along.
I'm gonna take this basket that I had left over from another project. I'm gonna finish cutting out the wire portion from the basket. I just use my wire cutters. It does take a little bit of strength and some time to get this completely off of those top and bottom pieces. And then I'm going to take these wood pieces that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. You can honestly just go to your local Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some wood and cut it down. You don't necessarily need to buy the packs from Hobby Lobby, but I bought them before I had a saw. So this was the easiest way for me to have wood pieces when I didn't have the ability to cut them down. So I just took 4 of these pieces. I believe that they are a 1x4, and I'm going to take my Craftsmart stain in gray. I love this stain because it is a water-based stain. It doesn't have the smell, and it doesn't stick to your skin and leave you stained as much as just regular stain does. And I'm going to take that on all 4 pieces, and then once that's dry, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white with a chip brush, and I am going to dry brush over all 4 of my pieces and making sure that I get all 4 sides on each piece. Now I'm going to start assembling my box. So I'm just going to take some hot glue. This is actually wood glue that you can get off of Amazon. That's where I get it. I always have it linked in my description box below. And I just hot glued it into the shape of a box. Really as simple as that. And then I'm going to take that wire basket part that I cut out from the basket, and I just traced along where I needed to cut off that excess wire. I cut all that out, and then I'm going to take my staple gun and I'm going to start stapling this to the back of my box. I just made sure to pull tight and made sure to get the corners. I just went around the entire thing. And then that's it. I think this is so fun to be able to put all your little knickknacks in. You could put some sawtooth hangers on it and hang it on a wall, or you can put it on a shelf. I think these are really, really fun.
All that we have is each other now.
I took one of these tall vases that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to clean it up because I've had it for quite a while, so it needed a good cleaning. I'm going to take some of these pop-up stickers that you can also get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to begin putting these around my vase. So I just tried to evenly space them around, and then when I got down to that second layer, I put the next sticker right in between 2 of the other stickers, so you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. But I just did that pattern about 3/4 of the way down. I didn't want it to go all the way down to the bottom of the vase, so I made sure to stop about 3/4 of the way. Now a tip is I would not paint this. I would go out and spray paint it. I feel like it's gonna make
the paint look a lot nicer and a lot more even rather than using your brush to paint it. I took some leftover mixture of my steel Waverly chalk paint and some baking soda that I'll use later on in this video, but I just took what I had left over and I'm just painting a little section of the bottom of the vase about 1/4 of the way up, just a little bit below where I stopped those stickers. And I just eyeballed it, trying to get the top line as even as I could, and I just went all around the bottom of the vase, painted it with this mixture, which I think turns out so beautiful. I love the way that the baking soda and paint look together. It gives you such a textured look, and right now I'm super obsessed with it. I think that it looks super, super cool. So I just went through and painted the entire bottom. I added another one of those lids that I made for my other vase, and that's it for this DIY.
What you wanna do, I'll do anything. As long as I can be here with you, everything's alright. I'll be right here. I swear that I'll stay here with you. Hold me closer. I wanna stay here with you. All that we have is each other now. I promise I won't leave your side.
I'm going to grab this little house and this fabric. Both came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start by just kind of rough tracing the outline of the house on the fabric. Now, this is going to be cut down quite a bit until I can get it to fit inside the house. So I just cut that out, and then I will lay that fabric back down onto the house, kind of figure out where I need to trim it. It doesn't have to be perfect because I am going to be fraying the edges. Once I get it roughly the shape that I want it, I'm just going to go through and pull out a whole bunch of strings on all the sides to give it that frayed look. Now, once I have that done, I am going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to put that all over the back of my house, and then I add my fabric to the back of the sign. Now I'm going to take this little round. This is actually from Couture. It's one of their little round chip pieces, and it was the perfect size for this DIY. So I grabbed this. I'm going to take some Folk Art Italian Sage paint, and I gave this about 2 good coats of paint. I'm going to take one of these transfers that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I cut out this little bee inside of the wreath and added that to the center of my round, and I just used a popsicle stick to rub this on here. Now the trick with these ones is that you have to hold down that paper really nice and tight so it doesn't go sliding around, and just go around your entire thing. It does transfer on pretty easily, which I was impressed with. And then I just glued that to the middle of my sign, and that's it for this DIY. Super simple and easy, and I thought this turned out adorable. You are going to take one of these bamboo cutting boards from the Dollar Tree. You're going to take one of the square beaded garlands from the Dollar Tree, and then you're going to take some scrapbook paper. This scrapbook paper is from my website. You can purchase this as individual sheets on there. I will leave that linked down below. So I just started by cutting off 4 beads from the garland. I'm going to paint the sides and the bottom portion of the bamboo cutting board in some Waverly white chalk paint, and I did just give it one rough coat, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to hot glue those beads down to each corner, and I'm going to turn this into a little riser. So I'm just going to add my beads, finish painting the bottom and making sure that I'm getting those beads painted. Once that is all dry, I'm just going to lay that down on the back of my paper and just trace
the cutting board out on the paper. I'll cut that paper out, add some glue with a glue stick to the cutting board, and then I'll add my paper on top of it. And then any paper that's left hanging over the edges, and I just took my X-Acto knife and went around it and cut off all those little scraggly pieces. And then I also took my sandpaper and went around all the corners to make sure they were all nice and smooth. And then for a finishing touch, I just took some antique wax from Waverly, went around all the edges, blended that wax in with my finger, and just gave it a little bit more of a distressed look to it. And that's it for this DIY. Really easy, and you end up with a super cute riser. For this DIY, you're going to take one of these metal mason jars from the Dollar Tree. You are also going to take some scrapbook paper. Again, this is from the Farmhouse Living Pack off of my website. I'll have this link down below so that it is easy for you to find if you'd like to take a look at it. And I'm just going to take a piece of scrapbook paper from that pack and trace it out using a pen and my scissors, and cutting that mason jar out on that paper. Once I have that paper cut out, I'm going to use my glue stick to adhere my paper to my mason jar. And then again, I'm going to take the On the Farm transfers from Dixie Belle. I'm going to take one of the cows that it has that's really cute, and I just add that to the very center, at least tried to get it in the very center of my mason jar. And I'm just going to use a popsicle stick to rub that transfer onto the paper, and then I will pull off that carrier sheet. I took this ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I wrapped it around the lid portion of the mason jar and just added some hot glue in the back. And then I found just a little piece of some lamb's ear in my stash, and I hot glued that to the top side portion of the mason jar. And then to kind of cover that stem up a little bit and add a little bit more detail, I took some twine, wrapped it around the mason jar and the stem just over and over and over, and tied a double knot in the back. And that is it for this one. This one was super easy, took maybe 10 minutes to do, and I think it turned out adorable. Is so simple and so fast. I'm going to take one of these house picture frames from the Dollar Tree. I just removed the glass and the picture. I'm going to trace out the glass on a piece of scrapbook paper that again you can get from my website, and I just cut that scrapbook paper down to the size that it needed to be and put that back into my house and added the backing to the frame. Next, I'm going to take these little stickers from the Dollar Tree. I am going to use the one that says Farmhouse, and I'm just going to apply that to the very front of that glass, trying to get it into the center as best I can. Grabbing these greenery rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree, I just cut out 2 little pieces, and I am going to use these for the sides of my house. I just center them where I want them, rub them down onto the frame, and that is it for this DIY. So simple, so easy, and I love how this one turned out. This one was a bit of a
an experiment. Didn't turn out the exact way that I wanted it to. I definitely could have done some things different to make it a little bit better. But for this one, I'm taking a sign from the Dollar Tree, some rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree, and then also this vinyl from the Dollar Tree. So when I laid this vinyl out, it was a little bit more see-through than I would have liked, and I tried taking off the paper off the sign. That didn't go super well, so I took some heavy cardstock that I had and I put my vinyl down on top of my cardstock, and then I cut that cardstock out. Now, to make sure that I have it as close to that middle portion of that sign as I can get, I just lay that cardstock and vinyl on top of it and kind of push around the edges so that it leaves an indentation where I can then later go and cut around those lines. Now I'm just going to adhere it using my glue stick and put that vinyl and paper right on top of there. And then I'm going to take this rub-on transfer that says, "You are a wildflower." Now if I would have done this again, I would have taken this maybe on another piece of paper, because I feel like this kind of blended too much into the vinyl. So it was a little bit harder to see. You could also trace it with another colored pen if you wanted to, but I feel like if I would have put this on another piece of paper, maybe did like a ripped edge look around it, and then put this on my sign, it probably would have looked a little bit better. But I still think it turned out cute, and I wanted to show this DIY to give you some inspiration.
I found this spring quotes bundle. This is an SVG bundle, and it comes with all of these different SVGs. I love the bundles specifically that you can get a ton all in one. You're not having to download a ton of different SVGs. You can just do the bundles. So I'm going to show you how I add it into my Cricut design space. You're just going to click upload, then click upload image. You're going to click on browse, and then you're going to find the SVG that you want. So you're going to find that bundle that you downloaded, and then find the SVG of your choice. Click open, and then your SVG will pop up right there. You can name it, add some tags, click upload, and then it will be in your little recent uploads folder right there. You can click on it and click add to canvas, and then it is right there on your screen. All you got to do is resize it. I just wanted to give an example of how to upload it to your design space if you're using a Cricut. I am going to choose another image from the same bundle. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my blank, which is this 12-inch wood round. I love these wood rounds, especially doing door hangers and fun signs. So I'm just going to measure it out, and then I'll measure out how big I need my image to be. I'm going to use some black permanent vinyl. This is the Starcraft vinyl, which I do get from Expressions vinyl. It's also where I get my transfer tape that I love the most, and I always have those linked down below if you guys are ever interested. I love the transfer tape that I get off there the best. I also like the Oracle vinyl from there. It's some of the best in my opinion. So I just cut out my image, and I'm going to go through and weed it. After I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and paint my wood round. I just painted it with my Waverly chalk paint in white and gave it one good coat. I added my vinyl to my transfer tape, centered it onto my sign, and then I will just remove that transfer tape. I added the twine back into the round, and that's all I'm going to do for this. I'm going to keep it super simple and just, really easy to do. And I think this looks really cute paired with a wreath on your front door, or you could pair it with a wreath in your home, or you can just hang it wherever you want. I think that this is really cute. Doing DIYs does not have to be super complicated. You can make it as simple and as easy as you want it to be. And this one was a piece of cake, and I love the way it turned out. I grabbed the vintage Rustic Farmhouse Utensil Prints off of Creative Fabrica. I think these are super pretty, and either printing them on regular paper or printing them on tissue paper like I am would look amazing. So I'm going to grab my blank from the Dollar Tree. This is their little houses, and I'm going to use the back as the front. I'm going to paint it with my Waverly chalk paint in white, just giving it one good coat on the front. I left the sides alone because I wanted them to have that wood look to them paired with the white. I'm going to add my layer of Mod Podge on top of my house, just smoothing that all over the entire front. And I'm going to let that completely dry. You can use your heat gun to speed up the process if you'd like. Now I'm going to take my image that I printed out onto some tissue paper, and I'm going to center that onto my house, add a piece of parchment paper on top, grab our mini press on high, and I'm going to go over the entire thing, smoothing it out middle to the sides, trying to get all of the wrinkles and bubbles, make sure that they are not in there. I'm going to reactivate that Mod Podge so that the tissue paper sticks to our piece, and then I will use some sandpaper to remove all the excess tissue paper from the house. That's it for this one. Super easy, really cute. I love these prints so much. Like I said, these printed out onto some cardstock and put it into a frame would look beautiful. I just love the way this turned out. For this DIY, a really simple farmhouse SVG. This is so easy to do. You're just going to download it, upload it to Cricut, and cut it out. I'm going to weed my letters, and I'm going to take this shiplap blank from the Dollar Tree. I love this one so much. Very farmhouse, and the word farmhouse fit perfectly with this sign. So all you're going to do is take your vinyl, add it to your transfer tape. Again, this comes from Expressions Vinyl, and I'm going to center this into my sign as best as I can. Remove the transfer tape, and that's it. You have a super cute farmhouse sign that took you maybe 5 minutes to do. Like I said before, crafting does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple and quick as you want it, and I love this piece for being super simple. I found these Floral Bee watercolor clip art. Again, this is in a bundle, so you get several different images in your download, and I love bees. I love decorating with them for summer. I think they are just so cute. I'm going to take this wooden tag that comes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give the front one coat of my Waverly chalk paint in white. I printed out my images using the tissue paper technique. Again, I just taped some tissue paper to some printer paper and printed out my image. I'm going to cut around my image, trying to make it as round as possible. I will add some Mod Podge on top of my wooden tag. I let that completely dry. Again, we're doing the iron-on method, which I think works really well using tissue paper. And I'm going to add my tissue paper to my tag, use my parchment paper on top of that, and the iron on top of that, reactivating that Mod Podge, and you get a really wrinkle-free product every time, which I love. I feel like I'm repeating myself a billion times, but I love this method so much since I did my napkin DIYs. If you didn't see that, I'll leave it linked down below, but I am loving the decoupage and iron-on method. I just think it's so much fun. And then to finish off my tag, I just distressed it using some Waverly Wax and Antique, and that is it. I think this looks so cute, and it's going to look adorable paired with all of my bee decor setup that I'm going to do on my front entryway table for the summer, and I just think it's adorable. You are going to take some tumbling tower pieces that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Now, I grabbed the wood glue, super glue that everybody has been recommending, and I love it. Thank you so much for recommending this, because This was so much easier than trying to use hot glue or trying to use my super glue, and the super glue just tends to sink into the wood, so this worked perfect. So what I'm going to do is take 9 tumbling tower pieces and I'm going to glue them all together right in a row. Once I've got that, then I'm going to take 3 tumbling tower pieces and I'm going to glue them on the short ends all together in a row. You are going to make 3 of these pieces. Now you're going to make 2 of these ones. You're going to take 2 tumbling tower pieces and you are going to stack them on top of each other. So you are going to do that twice. Now that you have all your pieces, you're going to begin to assemble them together. So you're going to take your 2 pieces that are stacked on top and stack them on each end of your longer 9-piece set. So it will be 3 high on each end. Now you're going to take your 3 sets of 3 and you are going to glue them all on top of each other as well so that they're all 3 high. And then you'll take that piece and you are going to glue it on the end of your larger piece. So what I'm doing is making a little basket. I didn't have a basket the correct size or the size that I wanted it for this DIY, so I just decided to make my own. So I'm going to set that to the side to dry. Now you are going to take one of these window arches that I just barely found these for the first time in the last several weeks. I know these came out, I think like last year or so, but I never found any in any of my Dollar Trees. So when I saw them this time, I was super excited and had to grab them. So I'm just going to take a little bit of black chalk paint and go over it. I wanted it to look not super plastic looking, so I used the black chalk paint to make it look a little bit more matte and to take that shine away. Now once my little basket is all nice and dried and stuck together, I'm also going to take my black chalk paint and I'm going to give this one a good coat. Once that's done, I'll add some glue to the end of my basket and glue it right to the middle of the bottom of my window arch. I grabbed some greenery from Michael's and I just started pulling off little stems, and I'm going to hot glue those to the bottom of my basket, and I just rearranged them in a way so that you couldn't see any of the stems once it was all done. But that's it for this DIY. I'm loving the black with the pop of green on it, and I just think this looks super cute. We are going to grab a glass vase. This came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take one bag and I'm going to tear the bottom out of it. Once I've got the bottom out, I'm just going to crinkle it all up, make it look as wrinkly as I possibly can, and then I will begin tearing strips out of it. So what I'm going to do is I want to cover this entire vase in this paper and give it a fun texture. So like I said, I'm just ripping it in strips, and then you could probably rip those strips in half just to make things a little bit easier. I'm going to add Mod Podge to my vase, and I just kind of did this in sections, added some Mod Podge, added my paper on top. Every time I added some paper, I put a ton of Mod Podge on top of that paper just to make sure everything was going to harden down, make sure everything was nice and stuck down to my vase. So I just went in with a ton of Mod Podge for this, and it did take a while to completely dry, but if you have the patience for it, this is a fun one. So again, you're just going to add your Mod Podge, add your paper, and you'll continue to recover the entire thing in Mod Podge over the paper, making sure everything is nice and stuck down. The key to this is not getting things perfect. You want to have a bunch of wrinkles everywhere. You don't want it to sit completely flat against your vase. The more texture and the more wrinkles, the better. Once this has completely dried, or 99.9% of the way dry, I took a chip brush and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to dry brush over the vase. I love this. I love the textures that peek through, and you can see all those wrinkles really well. Now you could leave it. You don't have to add the white on top of it. I think it looks really pretty that way as well, but I just think adding the white on top really shows off all that texture, and it adds a fun dimension to it. So that is how this one turned out. This was really easy and fun. Add your florals or some greenery inside, and you have a really fun new textured vase. I grabbed 3 different size eggs from the Dollar Tree, and we are going to DIY them, change them all up, and put them all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is Mod Podge the largest egg, and I'm going to use the back as the front. So I'm going to use Mod Podge on the entire thing. Make sure to get your whole entire board completely covered with Mod Podge, and then we are going to let it completely dry. Now you can use your Mod Podge wet if you like. I prefer to use mine dry. That's just how I like to use it. I never have luck when I'm using it wet, so I let the whole thing dry. I grabbed some scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby that I thought was perfect for Easter, and I love those lavendery colors. I'm going to set that on top of my egg and trace that out using a pencil, and then I will go through with my scissors and cut the entire thing out. Once that's done, you can add some parchment paper on top of your egg, and then using your Cricut Mini Heat Press on all the way hot, you're going to go over the entire thing. Now this is going to reactivate your Mod Podge and get your Mod Podge to stick to your paper. And you'll get a seamless, wrinkle-free finish every single time. And then I'm going to take a chippy brush and some of that Waverly Wax and Antique, and I'm going to distress my egg all over the entire thing. I'm going to go in with this apple barrel in lavender sachet, and I am going to paint my middle-sized egg with that color. Again, I love the lavender this year. I think it's so pretty for Easter, and I'm just going to paint that entire thing, gave it one good coat, and then I'm going to go in with this little plank from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to use it to draw some shiplap lines on the egg. So I just do that 3 times, move my plank up, draw another line, and then I'm going to go in with my Waverly Wax and Antique and distress it up a bit all over the top, bottom, sides. I'm also going to go through the middle a little bit, use a flat brush, and go over those shiplap lines that we drew. I'm going to set that to the side, and we are going to work on our third egg. I'm going to grab the smallest one and then some of this scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby with the little bunnies on it. I thought that was absolutely adorable. I just traced that out and then cut that out with some scissors. And then I'm just going to use a good old glue stick for this one. Just glue it right on there with your glue stick and add my paper right on top. Next, I'm going to make a scrappy bow, just using 2 different kinds of ribbon. Again, I am not the best at this, you guys. I don't know how you all get your bows to look so good. Every time I do mine, I feel like it looks so ridiculous. So bear with me on the bows. I am going to teach myself, and I'm going to learn how to do it. I am going to hot glue my middle-sized egg to my biggest egg just on the side, giving it a little tilt, and then gluing my smallest egg to the bottom, and then I'll glue that bow to the top of my purple egg, and that is it for this one. I love these colors all paired together and the scrapbook paper all paired together. I think it's really pretty. These would also look really fun on a big sign, maybe with those smaller eggs and doing that same paper and color design. I don't know, maybe I'll do a DIY with that. We'll see, but that is it for this DIY. You're going to take 2 of these little wood pallets that you can get from the Dollar Tree in the Crafter's Square section. I just went in with some sandpaper in the beginning because they do have pretty rough edges with little pieces of wood sticking out here and there, so I tried to get it as smooth as I possibly could. And then I'm just going to hot glue those 2 pallets together. I'm going to use a popsicle stick and cut it down to size just to reinforce it so it's a little bit more sturdy. And then I'm going to take my white Waverly chalk paint and I'm going to paint the entire thing. And I did just do 1 coat on it. I wasn't too worried about it, again, having full coverage because it is going to be a rustic piece. So I just did 1 good coat. Once that is all dry, to distress it, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in mineral, and with a chip brush, I'm going to go over all of those sides, just doing a dry brushing technique, starting from the side and dragging it to the middle, and then I do go in between each of those slats as well to define those a little bit more and give it more dimension and distressing. So next I'm going to take some florals. You can use whatever florals you want. These are from a mixture of Hobby Lobby and Michaels. And I just started cutting off little pieces here and there and playing around with the arrangement. Once I got the arrangement that I liked, I'm going to take a piece of floral wire. I'm going to twist that wire around all of the stems. I wanted this to look like a little bouquet. So once I've got those all attached, I'm going to take some twine. I'm going to tie a double knot at the top to secure it all in place, and then I'm going to take that twine and I'm going to start twisting it around all of the stems. I go all the way to the bottom and then I do a second layer all the way to the top, and then once I get back to the top, I'm going to tie it in a double knot again, and then I am going to tie a little bow. Now, I knew just trying to hot glue this down to the sign, it wasn't going to work very well. So what I decided to do was take a piece of a popsicle stick and I hot glued it to where about the bow was on the stems of the bouquet. And I took an extra piece of twine and I just wrapped it around the front of the bouquet and then down through the slats of the palette. And then I tied the twine around that popsicle stick so that it would hold the bouquet in place.
Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? Forever.
And that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Let me know which project was your favorite in the comments down below. Don't forget to shop our craft kits at moorevinyldecals.com. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!